JT Bay, how you doing? How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning. Top of the world right now.
Top of the world. Yeah, I was just telling everybody you was going to be joining us this morning and have a little sit-down round table discussion, talk about maybe some tax issues, a little trust, maybe get in a little dinar conversation. You know how we do it.
Yep, we do it raw.
That's good. Well, for all of my listeners who may be unfamiliar with you, because you've been on the show before, and you had a very, very popular show, by the way. A lot of listeners tuned into that show. But why don't you reacquaint yourself with the listening audience by taking a little time, telling them who you are, what you do, how you got into what you're doing, and all this right here. I'm going to give you the floor a little bit, and you could just rattle off and just do your thing, okay?
All right. I'm JT Bay, and I specialize in taxes and trust. And there's a lot of information in both of those areas, but you have to immerse yourself in it. Took me 11 years to learn the complete Internal Revenue Code, all 9,820 pages. But I put it to memory so I wouldn't forget it. And that's a good thing because you never know when you're going to be in a battle. But I've never lost in front of the IRS, and I started back in 1975. And since then, I've never had a problem with those boys because they don't read their books. Their books are on their desk, and they look brand new. No dog-eared collars to the books or none of that. So that shows that they're really just clerks and running around posing as agents, but they're really not. They're basically people that carry paper around and try to look important. But the idea is to understand and know what the codes are about and how they are set up. And it's very simple to me. It is simple. The code sections are from A through, I think, D. I would think, no, really E and F. F is where you stop off at. Subtitle A is income tax. Subtitle B is gift and estate tax, which we're going to talk about in trust. Subtitle C is employment tax. Subtitle D is Subtitle D. What was that? That's excise tax, which is really crazy. Subtitle E is alcohol, tobacco, and firearm. That's where they pull a lot of you guys into and make you liable for a tax. Subtitle F is procedure and administration for D&E. And Subtitle F is Subtitle F. Wow, why am I having lapses? Subtitle F is slipping my mind. I'm not up yet. Subtitle D, E, F is I'm gonna skip that right now, and I should know what that is. Anyway, I will come back to F. F is not the procedures and administration. Are there? I think it is. I think it's procedures and administration for D&E. That's what it is. It's the procedures and administration for D&E. I don't keep it in mind a lot because it's way in the back of the book. Subtitle F also is where a lot of people are trapped, and that's where they get the most of their money from, and that it's not lawful. When you get into G, and H and all those are talking about things like black loan, insurance, and things like that. But that's basically the codes as they are. The trust is a little bit different. It's based on subtitle B of the Complete Internal Revenue Code, which is estate planning. Estate planning is very, very difficult to maneuver through because it goes back and forth to taxes, and then it goes back to constitutional law, admiralty, maritime, and also English law, which is chancery law. We'll be talking about that a little bit when we get into the trust issues. I'm waking up now, so I can get my groove on. But that's some of the highlights that we'll be going over today and discussing in detail. There are some important things that I'm going to discuss in regards to how the trust is set up. And the trust is basically for those who are very wealthy. You won't find too many broke folks with trust. Trusts help you eliminate a lot of tax issues also because there are certain code sections that you can utilize. And we'll be talking about those code sections. And the first one that comes to mind is 3121E. You want to write that down. That's an important code section because it separates the men from the boys. And I say that to say that in that code section, you are allowed to transfer cash flow from one trust to another entity to a 1040 NR, non-resident. And from there, you can do another transfer, foreign to foreign. It's no longer U.S. income. And it's a big leap for those who are used to paying taxes. You will not be paying any because it's no longer U.S. income. And also, they were talking about getting rid of this fiat money as of December the 23rd, 2013. They were supposed to eliminate fiat, as in these Federal Reserve notes. And in Title 31, Section 3124, stocks and obligations of the United States are exempt from taxation by a state or political subdivision of a state. And that includes all these notes that you see running around here. Veil as money. They are not money. They are obligations, and obligations for what they call IOUs. And everyone is using those IOUs because they allow people to buy and sell. But they were first used as military script. So we're basically still under military rule if you're using military obligations. And to date, I went to the bank the first of the year to do a transaction and pull some cash out, and I found that the new bills were also had Federal Reserve on them. And if it has Federal Reserve on it, 99.9% of the time, that would be fiat. That would be obligations of the United States. And Title 18, Section 8, page 17, states that obligations are exempt from taxation by a state political subdivision of a state. Now, if they are exempt, how could you be paying taxes on that, on an IOU? It just boggles the mind how people are duped into certain things that the so-called government, who are really gangsters, to be honest with you, they're gangsters, and they're running roughshod over us. And if you don't play by their rules, they either kill you or they incarcerate you, which is the same thing. They kill you spiritually. So it's a big mess that we're going to have to figure out. And Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution states, nothing but gold and silver coins shall be a payment of debt. Now, the last time we saw gold and silver coin was back in the 20s and the early 30s. After that, they took gold and silver coins off the market, and now you can only buy them through dealers. And they were freely utilized as a means of commerce, but now it's not. So that's how we're going to start today. That's just a brief understanding of what's really going on. So I turn it back over to you, Yusef, so you can get a word in edgewise.
Okay, that was a great introduction. It's an interesting thing in me researching, when I started researching trust law, and I give a lot of the credit to you for that, providing me the information to study on particular trusts, unincorporated business organizations, and so forth. I started to see that, and Gene Keating as well, because I know you know Gene Keating too, and he knows you, that I started to see that it's all about taxes, that the tax law is what's important, as well as the utilization of these Federal Reserve notes. These Federal Reserve notes is what gives them a lot of the jurisdiction that they seize over so many different things. And, and that's what I started to say. I said, this is all about taxation. Now, one interesting point that you did bring to my attention that, that made me realize something is when you were talking about how they should take you from Title 26 into Title 27 to the the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms section, and that because there's no enforcement arm under Title 26, but they remove you from that and take you into Title 27. Could you explain that a little bit to the people?
Yes. Well, Title 26 is very critical. After you pass Code Section 4181, but when you get to 4181, the stopping mark is 4180, which is a code section that deals with other issues. But 4181 is where they start guns and cartridges and muskets and all of that. It starts right there, and that's where they leap you into that. And I want to talk to you, too, about the liens and levies. The liens and levies are in alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. And what they do is they bring you into what they call the 6,000 code. And when you get into the 6,000 code, you're up for grabs, and all your assets and all your worldly goods can be taken from you if you're not cognizant of what you're doing. For you to get a lien and levy, it is a misrepresentation of a material fact, because if you're in Title 26, how in the world could you get from being in income tax and all of a sudden you're now dealing alcohol, tobacco, and firearms? It's a misrepresentation of a material fact, and it's constructive fraud. But nobody catches the IRS in that because they don't know how to read what codes are there. It should be a lot simpler for people to understand it, but they don't. And a lot of people get caught up because when they get a notice from the IRS, they figure it's a document from on high, and they treat it like that. And whatever they put down on that paper, the amount of money they put down on that paper, people usually have to give it up. But you don't have to give up something that's fraud in its inception, and that's what that code section is about. It's code section 6321 to 341, and those code sections are all alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, and you do not have to obey any law that is not connected with you, and those are not connected with you. And Title 26, as you said, Yusef, has no regulation. And if no regulations, no law. And that's in Mirsky versus United States, the Supreme Court case. And it states very clearly there that there is no regulations for that. And if there's regulations, then there's a law you have to abide by, but it's no regulations, so there is no applicability to that. But you have to show them that they're not correct, because by you just telling them that they're not correct, they don't understand it. Because, like I said, those books on their desk, if you want to check out an agent and see what they know, you just go look at it. They say, let me see your code book. You go get his code book, it looks brand new. It hasn't. None of the pages have been tossed in it, or no wear has been put on them. And you have to put some wear and tear on it if you're going to get something out of it. And that's just the way it is, period.
That's interesting. In studying trust law and trust management, because we got a lot of people, who listen to this show, they talk about setting up foreign trusts, 9-8 numbers. We get a lot of discussion, 4 or 5 numbers, things of that nature. I know you spoke about estate planning earlier, this is what this is. This is an estate planning mechanism. And I've come to understand the importance of estate planning. A lot of us, we don't understand it. We think of it in the terms, I think of, that's if you have a lot of money and, to convey wealth, which it is, but it also is a wealth building mechanism, and it also helps you to understand privacy, what private rights are all about. That's one thing I've come to understand. And in being a manager of a trust, you need to know how to respond to IRS agents, because it seems like their intention is to find some kind of way to find some type of flaw in your process where they can penetrate and come in and see some sort of jurisdiction so they can take some type of property from. And that's why I'm always saying on this show, I say, man, if you want to understand public and private, study tax law and trust law, because actually the IRS codes were written during a time when a lot of people were using private trust. It was heavily in use. And so, you're going to find out a lot about, protecting privacy by studying the IRS. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. And also, you got to understand that there is privacy in planning your demise. That's what people don't understand. None of us is going to leave here alive. So, Subtitle B is a very important code section because it allows you the ability to plan your estate. And your estate is your body, your property, your assets. All of that is involved in your estate. And you have a right to plan your estate any way you see fit, whether you want to give it away, whether you want to, improve it, whether you want to help it grow. All of those attributes are in estate planning. And there's one key thing about the trustee. The trustee do not have to testify in the court in regards to the trust because it's private. And I mean it's really private because you don't see any of those politicians talking about their estate anytime, any place, anyhow. Because if you did, you would find out they've garnered billions of dollars that they've stolen from the U.S. government and put under their mattress. And there is no tax for them, but there's a tax for you if you got 25 cents. They want 10 cents of that. So it's just not a fair system at all, and it's not set up the way to be. You have to be on your job. You have to be cognizant of how they pry into your business and make it their business. It's nobody's business when you get into trust and estate. It's nobody's business. It's your business. You're the ones passing on, not them. and they'll just be waiting to get whatever is left of your estate and put your people under the gun. And because they don't know, they're not understanding what's going on. A lot of the people's estate gets taken away from them when the person that was head of the family, whether it's father or mother, pass on and hasn't passed the information to them. And that's why I'm here, because I would like to pass that information to people and not make it where it's a burden on their wallets, and get them set for the wolves that are coming, because they definitely smell the blood, and they're coming, and they're going to be coming to fleece you. And this thing about them getting rid of the Federal Reserve is a joke. They still here. They're here, and it's past the 23rd of December, and it just don't make good nonsense. It's just crazy.
Okay, now you're saying they're getting rid of the Federal Reserve. Okay, and I don't see that happening either. There's a lot of hype. But before we go in there, let me jump real quick to another topic. Let's talk about these dinars, because this dinar thing is, and I want my listening audience to be aware of it, because I think that they should. I think it's my responsibility to tell them that there's a possibility that they could possibly be enriched by this. Now, I've gotten into this dinar thing, and, I see what's going on. Matter of fact, I ordered some more dinars last night because they said, hey, I'm supposed to jump off again. But what is your take on these dinars, and what do you feel is going to happen with these dinars? And in case everybody didn't know what a dinar is the Iraqi currency from Iraq. And it's one of the oldest currencies on the face of the planet. But go ahead and talk about that a little bit, because I think our people should be at least informed about that.
Well, the dinar is basically what they call petrodollars, oil dollars, because Iraq continues to find bigger and larger pockets of oil. They just found one about 2 weeks ago in a colony up northwest of what is that? Was one of the major cities in Iraq. Well, I don't know whether it's Basra or one of those places, but the dinar is utilized better than the U.S. dollar, because the U.S. dollar is losing its traction, and it's becoming almost a lost sheep in the wilderness. But the dinar is going to be traded internationally, and the Chinese are definitely involved a lot in that. And the Chinese, as you know, is one of the biggest traders now on the planet, and they are worldwide. I was in Nigeria in 2004, and on my way there in Amsterdam, we were waiting for transfer to get to Nigeria, and here comes about maybe 60, 70 Chinese off the plane. And I go, where do these folks come from? They got on the same plane I got on, the 777, and they flew into Nigeria. Well, about 2 or 3 weeks later, they, while I was there, they had etched out a deal with the government of Nigeria. Now, I was the guest of the president of the country, so I had an ability to listen to a lot of conversations at the president's house, at his farmhouse, that he had a lot of meetings at, and he knew I was an expert in taxes, so I sit in on a lot of those meetings. But the Chinese etched a big deal with them, and that was the beginning in 2004 of them providing fuel for their cars, because you remember in Tiananmen Square, they used to have a lot of bicycles. Well, now all you see is cars, all types of cars, They're building them. They're exporting them. They're expanding their portfolio, and they're expanding their tracks on the planet, because China is everywhere now, and they're the ones that are getting these dinars where they are, because they were just pennies years ago, and now I heard that you can get at least $56 per dinar in where is this place at? In Reno. In Reno now, I was told that the going price is $56 per dinar. Now that's 25,000 dinar for one note. Okay, it's a 25K note, and 25,000 times 56. You do the math. It's very easy to understand why it's so pervasive, and it's going to be one of the biggest currency even after this happens. So if I was you guys, I wouldn't get rid of all of them, because the banks are looking for that. The banks are salivating based on the fact that they're going to get these people to bring them a currency that's going to put them in the oil business. The banks are now going to be squarely in the middle of the oil business, because Iraq has plenty of oil. They have plenty of gold. They have plenty of other minerals. They have, what is that called? Titanium. Titanium is one of the metals that the military structure used for their tanks and their some of their airplanes. So the bullets won't penetrate them. But it's a lot of assets that Iraq has now. That is, they were the first place that God put people on the planet. I mean, that was the first place people inhabited, and that's the Mesopotamia River and all of those places. And they're worldwide known, and they had the big war over them, but that was just a war for the U.S. to come in and possess and take over their assets, and that's what we've done. And they are just a colony of the U.S. now, and that's the way that game is being played. But in terms of the Iraqi dinar, they also brought some other currencies forward, like the Vietnam dong. The Vietnam dong is in the play now, and and Zimbabwe snuck in there too, because Zimbabwe has a lot of gold itself, a lot of gold and a lot of diamonds. Quite a few diamonds are in Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is led by Mugabe, and he got rid of all the European farmers there, which I think was a mistake, because you need food, and those boys was mass producing the food. I mean, good food, not food that was laced with a lot of the chemicals that we use here in the U.S. It was natural soil that was bringing forth a lot of fruits and vegetables and commodities that was sold all over the world. Well, when Mugabe got rid of them, their economy kind of slipped a little, but he started bringing out these diamonds and selling them through other countries, and that's what they've been doing here lately. But in doing that, they kept their economy kind of going. But now the Zimbabwe notes are out, and I'll just give you an inside track. They have trillions on their notes. They have 12 zeros as a trillion with a 1 in front of it. And their notes are now being, their historic notes, the 2008 series is coming out, and the 2008 series is what they're trading now. And they're trading them for 11 cents for the 50 trillion and 22 cents for the 100 trillion. that equates to the 50 trillion equates to $11 million for the lower notes, the little notes. I'd say the little notes. 50 trillion is not little, but the 100 trillions are 22 million. So if you're going to buy some notes, I would say forget about the dinar. Deal with that. Deal with them Zimbabwe notes. They're a bigger bargain, as far as I'm concerned. 11 cents sounds a lot, but if you
so you think the Zimbabwe notes? You think the Zimbabwe notes are more important than the dinar notes?
Yes, they are. You talk about less than $1 million on about $900,000 on a Iraqi note, and you're talking about $11 million for the lowest note in the Zimbabwe trail, which is 50 trillion. You get the math?
I get the math. I understand. Trust me, I understand the math. Now, let me ask you a question. A lot of people I've been looking at, and I've been on some other websites, and I've seen them doing webinars on this and all types of stuff, is that they are getting people to pool together their Iraqis, their Zimbabwe's, their dinars and everything, and pool it together and put it into a trust in order to put it on a trading platform. You know anything about that?
Yes, sir. And the U.S. government is doing the same thing. They're doing that in blocks and pools. You have to have a pool of 100 million to get on the trading platform. And some of my neighbors, former neighbors' friends, are traders. And I've been in their house and I've been in their presence when they were talking about these types of items. And it's quite fluid. One gentleman told me, who's a trillionaire, told me that they trade billions of dollars in a matter of minutes. I mean, 15, 20 minutes, it's over. And that's how it does. And they go 40 weeks. And they have a 40-week platform, and you're getting paid every Friday. That's why I was telling people that ain't nothing going to happen on Friday with regards to the Iraqi dinar. When they say, you're just full of beans. I'm saying, okay, see what happens. But there's not going to be a trade because they are continuously trading, and a lot of banks do it. And what they do is they scan your account. If you got $100 million in there, they can scan that account, send that document to the trader. The document is confirmed through the bank, and the trade is on. And the trade takes less than 15 minutes for you to make another $200 million. So that's what they've been doing, and they've been pumping up the economy with that. That's the way the game is played. So if you're not up on it, then you can't get with it. But you need $100 million to join the club, and not too many people have that on their own. So they pool the money together, and in 4 weeks they got more than $100 million.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's shift gears again. Obviously that was some good information. All of you out there, I put a link in the chat room, dinartrade.com. They sell a lot of different currencies. You can check them out. It's dinartrade.com. They sell the Viet Dong, the Korean won, the Chinese yuan, Indonesian rupee, the dinar. There's a Zimbabwe on here?
No, Zimbabwe is not on there. You have to go to an independent dealer for Zimbabwe. Just type in Zimbabwe note.com and Zimbabwe dollar. They call it the Zimbabwe dollar also. And you can get some bites on that. But they keep saying it's coming out. But how can it come out when you're making so much money trading?
So it's being traded right now, I guess, privately. Would it be, because it's not being made available to us? And now this is the thing. Because now you're saying some interesting things on this that's coming to my attention. So if you own a platform, you can already be making some money with these current.
Oh yes, that's what's been going on. That's why they've been delaying it. So wouldn't you delay it if you're making $100 million a week or more? Wouldn't you delay it?
Well, let me ask you this: would it be possible for us to put together a trust and get it put on a platform and start trading it?
Yes, and I do know some traders.
All right, that's all. I was just kind of throwing it out there. Throwing it out there. Because I have a way of putting two and two together. I'm like, I have one of those aha moments. Like, aha, that is what you're doing. That is what you're doing. All right. Yeah. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. Yeah. Well, what we're going to do is let's do this then, because I know you know how to put together trust. And what I wanted to do with my listening audience is I wanted to do a webinar with you on putting together these trusts. You think we could put that together?
Yes, we can definitely put that together. It's
okay. Great.
I did. And there's a gentleman there's a gentleman that I have to give my hat off to. He was from Boston, and he and I started back in '84. And his trusts are totally different because he puts an opinion letter. He's an attorney. He puts an opinion letter with the trust, and that opinion letter basically eliminates any taxes that entity would absorb as a result of the crooked government coming at him about taxes. And his name is Paul J. Sula Jr., and he's in Hawaii. I think he's in Kauai right now. It's been a while since I've talked with him, but when we were working together, his trust was not the typical trust that we do here. Our trust is normally about $3,000 to $3,500. His trusts are $26,000. The reason why it's $26,000 because he goes into debts, and his common law trusts are ironclad, and they can't break through them, and you cannot be sued or anything about them because you can't get the information from the trust due to the fact of privacy and estate planning. So it's an ironclad situation. Now, if you are wanting to get something that will last your lifetime and your family's lifetime, that would be the guy to talk to and get to know and see if he does trust. He was doing real estate the last time I saw him because real estate in Hawaii is just like doing a trade because our president bought a $90 million house over there. So, $90 million ain't nothing to sneeze at.
Obama? Are you saying Obama bought a $90 million house?
Yes, he did. In Hawaii.
Wow. So Obama got $90 million?
Does the United States have $90 million?
That's interesting. Now, real quick, I want to back to this trust information because this trust stuff, it's just about that taxation. You said he's going to attach an opinion letter from the attorney because it's my understanding if there's an equal exchange of assets, there's no taxable event because there hasn't been any gain or anything. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Yes. And that's what you do. You're taxed on some sort of gain that you've made. And that's what just about everything with the IRS, isn't it?
Yes. Capital gains is what they call it. And if you own the property already and you are just transferring it from one person to another because you have a succession of people who are going to get it, like the father is going to give it to his son or daughter, and there is no gain in that. It's just a transfer of assets. And
right, it's a transfer of assets.
Right, and that's how the Rockefellers built their fortune. They just transferred assets, and they own everything from gasoline stations to train to movies, everything you can think about, and it just transfers over, and it continues to grow. So that's how they built their fortune.
I mean, you tripped me out when you told me that Sony stands for Standard Oil of New York. That
right.
Everybody thought Sony was like a Japanese corporation, but actually the Rockefellers own a huge portion of real estate over in Japan. Is that correct?
They bought Japan in the 1800s, in the late 1890s. They bought what you call Japan. They bought it because there was nothing going on there but rice paddies, and the Rockefellers saw an opportunity, and that's why they created Sony and put it there, because that's Standard Oil of New York. And most people don't understand what that means. That means that they're running that place, period. Now,
I saw him on a, what did I see him on? I saw him on this guy named Ben. I was watching this. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. And people can go to YouTube and see this for themselves, because David Rockefeller is over in Japan a lot. He's over in Japan. And as a matter of fact, because they got a lot of people don't understand these Illuminati organizations are international, like international type organizations. And I think his name was Benjamin Fulford. That's his name, Benjamin Fulford. And you can get on YouTube and watch him. He has actually where he sits down with an interview with David Rockefeller over in Japan. I mean, when Benjamin Fulford did that, he kind of basically let me know that he wasn't a Rudy Poo. Because, first of all, how did he get a interview with David Rockefeller? And this guy, a lot of people say, oh, this guy's this and that. I'm like, the dude is sitting right there interviewing David Rockefeller. And David looked all shocked and everything. I'm like, wow, that was, he got a lot of respect when he did that. His name is Benjamin Fulford, and you can get on YouTube, and you can find this on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube.
They roll like that because they are part of that whole Illuminati group that the Rothschilds created back in Russia. And they are also in the same club. And those boys run the world because they have all the funds available to them. They got everything that's humanly possible to create, commerce. And that's what they do. They create commerce. And you see Japan goes down, but it always bounces back up. How is that? Well, they got a person who can write a check for any amount that they need. The Japan is never going to go down as long as there's a Rockefeller or a Vanderbilt or a Mellon or any of those related people or a Rothschild. They're not going anywhere. And we're talking about guys who are not trillionaires but quadrillions. Well, you know what a quadrillion is, right?
Well, I got a pretty good idea. I can't calculate it. 40 zeros. 40 zeros. Now, this is an interesting thing. Because a lot of people, that kind of conbables the mind when you hear people talk about that, because they're like, wait a minute, I thought that Bill Gates was the richest man in the world, or, somebody like that, or some guy down in Mexico or something like that. And what I try to tell people is that's public. This is a very good example of the difference between public and private. Do you really think that Bill Gates has more money than the Rockefellers? Obviously not. Obviously not. The Rockefellers' wealth goes back, is very, very old money, and the Rothschilds and all these. But you don't see these individuals in Forbes magazine or anything like that. It's because they are publicly traded companies. That's why they public, and their stocks and bonds are a matter of public record, and that's what they put out into the public and let you know. But there are individuals who are in the private who make their money look like pennies.
Yep. And in the 1800s, Rockefeller started his move in buying. He owns all the bookstores. He owns all the pharmaceuticals. He owns all the TV stations. I had a book called The Rockefeller File, and I let an attorney friend of mine look at it, and I never got it back. But it goes through, if you ever find that book, treasure it, copy it, and show it to people to show them what one man can do. And he was able to controlled Congress for a long time, because who's going to feed them boys? Rocky. He's going to feed them because he's got the funds to do that. In the 1890s, Rockefeller owned most of the rail lines because he was moving that oil from Pennsylvania. He started in Pennsylvania, and he walked all the way across the world just with that company. Okay? And
Standard Oil.
Standard Oil. Standard Oil was the first one. Then he put Exxon and Mobil and all the other people together because he just diversified those companies and made them other companies. And he did it so strategically that you couldn't stop him. He was like a freight train after that, coming downhill. So if you get in the way, you just get run over, period. Period. You get run over because who's not going to obey the guy who's paying him?
Wow. Hey, I got a question from the chat room. It's an interesting question. It says, wouldn't the dinars trading on the platform still trade at the true value? Well, yeah, I would think so. I think that the point is, though, is that it has a value. When you have a value of $100 million, it's trading. This is my understanding that it does have a value. That face value comes alive when you put those dinars on that trading platform. Is that correct?
Yes.
JT?
It's also based on the assets that Iraq has. It's based on their assets, and their assets are very high. They have a mountain of gold. People don't understand that. There's a mountain there that is all gold. And people are fighting and dying over those property rights to that gold. They got oceans of oil. I mean, how blessed can you be? They got strategic metals that they need for military applications. Iraq is the oldest place on the planet. People just don't understand. They've had this stuff for a long time. Now it's just being rediscovered. And
well, I think what happens is that they don't understand. Like I gave a lot of people on this show a story about Jonathan May. It's in this book that William Cooper wrote called "Behold a Pale Horse," but you can easily Google it on the internet too. It's called "The Story of Jonathan May," and it is one of the most. If you read this story and study it, to me, it's a study. It's a study guide. But what it is it's an affidavit that he put together because he got put in federal prison. And what he got put in federal prison for is he was one of the first creators of a land bank. And he started issuing his own instruments backed by gold and silver deposits that were still in the ground. You know, he had a geological survey done of the land, and they used that geological survey as an asset to establish a value for. And I would think that that's what's happening with the dinars. The dinars, those are notes. That is, they represent an obligation, and an obligation has to be tied to some sort of asset. And I'm sure that this discovery of all this gold and oil in Iraq is the reason why when you put it on this trading platform, it will have all this value. Am I correct?
And if you want to buy some oil, you go to Iraq, you got petrodollars. It's a lot cheaper than bringing out U.S. currency. Because U.S. currency is basically a currency that's getting flat and flatter. And it takes a lot more of those to buy a tank full of oil than it would the dinar because of the value of it, the dinar.
Well, it would seem like we would be able to put together a trust and give out certificates of beneficial interest to beneficiaries and just put together a collective and put some money on a trading platform. I mean, I don't see what's so difficult about that. It seems like that would be a very simple thing to do if we could just get people to do it. And I know there are people doing it because I was part of a webinar where some guys they were charging a ridiculous amount of money for it. I felt like they were taking advantage of people, but they had put together a private trust and they were putting the dinars. They were asking everybody to give their dinars and pool them together, and they're going to put it on a platform, put it on a trading platform. You know, I was just recently, not too long ago, involved in a meeting like that. I was like, wow, okay, these guys they're doing it. So I'm kind of right now, I guess I'm kind of putting a bug in all my listeners' ears because, you know, Yusef has a responsibility to his people to inform them about certain things like this. But anyway, we got a lot of callers on the line now, JT. You feel like taking a couple of calls now? JT?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, you're still there. Okay, I'm gonna take a couple of calls now. Okay, all right.
Okay, all right.
Let's go to the phone lines. Let's see where we at. Let's dip over to area code. Let's go to Pennsylvania real quick. Go over to PA, and we're gonna start there. Pennsylvania 412-1568 on High Frequency Radio. Did you have some questions or comments for our guests?
I always get questions and comments for you, the guest. It's just a thing about where to get started at. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How you doing, brother?
Good. Is Mr. Bay, he's on?
Yes, I'm on. I'm here.
Hey, this is the Perfect Black. I remember having a conversation with you not too long ago, and you were telling me about those tigers in that long grass in Nigeria.
Yes. It's 16 feet tall. It's 16 feet tall, and you can't see an elephant coming through it. So you have to think about your survival if you get out there with it.
Okay. Now you had read a code section, Title 31, Section 3124, and now I used that code one time when I was doing a debt validation about some property taxes with an attorney. Now, the attorney never responded back or nothing after I sung that code. And there's also a case. It's Memphis Bank versus Garner Supreme Court case. It said that's like the supreme law of the land is that code. Now, my only question at this point is, how does a person defend themselves when they want to do a sheriff's sale, you know, and basically the obligations in the United States are exempt from state and, you know, local taxation.
Yes. There's I mean, the whole game with the that they play with the Federal Reserve notes is a preposterous game because there's no value on it. It's the value that you perceive when you look at a note that says 10 on it. You figure that's $10, but that's not $10 of silver. It's not $10 of gold. So you really don't have a measuring tool for that. It's just 10 of something, or 20 of something, or 100 of something. But they take it because it's a matter of procedures. It's a matter of people accepting it. And if you accept it, then you take on all the responsibilities of dealing with that note. And that note has no value. It's 0, 0, 0. Period.
Well, my thing is at this point, if you send that, because usually when these attorneys come after you, the debt either been bought or signed by them, So when you send that after them, they decide they're going to just try to gangster you and still try to sell their property. So the best venue, would that be, doing a temporary restraining order and taking them to federal court and say, hey, look, the Constitution says gold and silver, and Federal Reserve, in that code section. So
right.
My thing is that how you defend it? And also, since Yusef said a lot of this stuff can be put into the public. Now, my question, I guess, Yusef, you can answer too. Would you file a motion for in-camera hearing where, these issues would be discussed inside the judge's private chambers? That's what an in-camera proceeding is. To keep
yes, and I got a guy off in San Francisco, even though I was late, and I told him we're going into chambers, and he didn't know how I was going to do it. And I said something to the judge, in effect, that made the judge know that I knew what was going on. When he said, let's go back in the chambers. When we went in the chambers, and I discussed the matter of law to him that he knew was the law, and we came back out. Everybody brushed off their clothes. My client walked out victorious, and that was it. It was over. And the lady asked me how to spell Mirsky. That's a Supreme Court case. She didn't know how to spell Mirsky, M-E-R-S-K-Y. Didn't know how to spell it. That means they had never heard of these things before. A lot of attorneys and judges do not know what they're doing. They do not know.
Yusef, you still, that in-camera proceeding, would that keep your issues private and out of the public?
Yeah, that's what in-camera means, private,
Is that the secret right there? Because you can file a motion for in-camera proceeding. You can file a motion and get it.
Yes. And that's where you want to drop the load on them. You want to drop all the things that they're not going to talk about, because it's just kabuki dance when you're going into court with people in the audience and all that. When you get down to business is when you and the judge can sit and talk, and he understands that you have an issue, then your issue is either going to be blared out in the public so the public will know what to do the next time they come in there. But he don't make as much money, because if he can bond the case, he makes money on a continuum in the future. And that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to bond you. That's why they locked up so many people. They're trying to bond them. So when that bond matures in the future, 5 years, if he gives you 5 years, that bond is matured in 5 years. He give you 10 years, that bond matured in 10 years. So he's looking out for his retirement. That's what he's doing.
Okay.
And I try to tell so many people this. A lot of people, they don't understand that unless they've been in something. I've been in it and tried to use the criminal procedure. I remember I had a case where, when I first started this, where I had understood how to do a demand for speedy trial, and I did it as a chess move. They had me locked up. They wouldn't give me a bond, so I filed a demand for a speedy trial. Now, in Georgia, when you file a demand for a speedy trial, it has to be within 2 terms after you have been indicted. Okay, it has to come in 2 terms, and the 2 terms in Georgia is 2 months. So, so if they indicted you on, like I said, I think they did it November. So it was November, December, January, and February. So I had 4 months to file a demand for a speedy trial. Now, you can't file a demand for a speedy trial if you have an attorney, because the attorney, first of all, they're not going to do it for you, or they're not going to do it properly or whatever. And, you're going to be getting all this resistance from them because they just want you to take a plea and get the hell on. So I had to have a hearing, and fired the attorney. It's on record. And then I went back to my cell, and immediately I had 1 day left. I put it in the mail, and anybody knows that when you file file any motions in the mail, it's filed as soon as it hits the mail. And I mailed to the clerk a demand for speedy trial, and she filed it the last day of the term. Okay, so everything was fine. Okay, now if they don't bring you to trial within after you file this demand, I think it's in 60 days. These are the rules now. You have to dismiss the case. The 60 days elapsed. I put in a notice to say, look, you didn't file. I filed a demand for a speedy trial. You didn't answer. You didn't give me they didn't have any witnesses. That's another reason why I filed a demand, because they didn't have any witnesses. They didn't have a single witness, not one witness. So what they did was they held a hearing and said that my demand for speedy trial was no good because they had appointed me another attorney. And mind you, there's nothing on the record that reflects that another attorney put in a notice of the entry of appearance. Now, I'm telling people this to say that you can follow the rules of procedure, and what you're going to find is that you're dealing with a group of people who have a vested interest in circumventing every type of procedure that they can because they are trying to get this bond on you. They are making money off of you, and it is a lot of money that they're making, and they don't give a damn about any procedures, anything. But the only people that would know that are people who go through these things. And that's why I'm on this show telling people this type of stuff. You know, it's like I know procedure inside and out myself. I don't talk about it because I understand privacy. I'm interested in the private side. I'm not interested in the public side anymore.
Exactly. And the private side is where you're going to get results, because when you take a judge into the private side and you look him in the eye and you tell him what time really is, and he knows that, you know, he could be disbarred and he could be thrown off that money train, he's not going to play with you. He's going to give you what you're looking for, even if it's an object impossibility. He's going to give it up because he don't want. I work for a judge. I work for a presiding judge at the Criminal Courts Building in downtown Los Angeles. So I know what goes on. And I know there's bribes that they take and all of that. And when I've caught my judge taking a bribe, I immediately stop working with him, because when you start taking bribes, that means you start killing people too. So if you don't want to be on that list, you better leave. So I left.
Okay. Well, just one last question, and I'll let somebody else grab the phone. And that was these remix and the taxes that are like tax. Isn't there like a tax shelter where these investors they're in these remix? Aren't they under some type of tax shelter? And that's the very reason why they have these remix.
Yeah, I can answer that, but go ahead, JT. I can answer that. But go ahead.
They are, because those real estate investment groups are doing a lot of things that is in accounting, which is like depreciation and not amortization, but depreciation and other maneuvers that they do to reduce the amount of taxation that's going on in some of those remix, because they are assets, and assets have a way of depreciating over a period of time, and that depreciation is either accelerated or scaled back. You can do either one you want to do. You could either accelerate it by cutting the years down, or you can drag it out by extending the amount of years that you have on those remix. And that's how you manipulate the numbers. And it's just how you feel that how long the assets is going to be viable. And that's basically an estimation, because it could go further or it could go less. It's just how you want to set it up, and that's accounting. That's why you have to know accounting as well as law to get through the maze of this craziness that they got going.
Oh, please say that again. I did a show talking about the financial accounting thing, because, you know, when I say there is no money, you know, I always get this somebody told me I should start saying there is no constitutionally mandated money. But, you know, I'm saying it's not me saying that there's no money. This is what the accounting says. If there's no money. It's not me. You know? You look at the accounting, it tells you that there ain't no money.
Ain't no money.
No, so they got these cases on the internet. Somebody emailed me and said, "What's the vapor money theory?" And I'm like, "Well, look, you can't take private information into the public. I mean, they got a compelling state interest against allowing this to succeed. As a matter of fact, I did a case I fought for like 2 years." And back then I didn't know what I know now, but I brought private information into the public, and the attorney said straight up, because I had so much information, because I studied all that vapor money theory stuff, and I would look at it and see now these crazy people coming into court fighting these cases. And I was using straight statutes and everything and showing these people and had my exhibits lined up, had everything lined up properly. The attorney just said straight up, just said, "Look, you can't allow him to win. He must not be allowed to win." This is what she said in her pleading to the judge. And the judge, and I was only looking for a declaratory judgment. I didn't even file a complaint. I was just looking for a declaratory judgment on my process. And the judge just dismissed the case, didn't give me any reason or anything like that. And I had tried to have the judge recused, and they sent me back something saying, "Well, it doesn't matter if the judge is right or wrong. You can't recuse the judge." And this is the type of ridiculous responses that I was getting. But then I began to understand. I didn't put them on Front Street with all this private information. But I hit them with so much stuff that it was undeniable, because you look at a lot of these other people who get accused of these vapor money theories. They're coming in and saying, "Oh, there's some private trust somewhere, and we're getting money off the trust," and they're going to make you look like you're crazy. It's like, what are you talking about? And you start talking about House Joint Resolution 192, and they're going to read that, and they're going to say, "Well, there's nothing in here that says there's a private account that you can draw off of or anything like that," and they're absolutely correct. There's no wording in there. So you're going to have to learn the accounting procedures. You're going to have to learn what the law states about negotiable instruments. It's an aggregation of different things that you have to become adept at understanding before you can present something like that. And you still should put it in the public.
Well, let me ask you this. If most of this stuff, if this public information, I'm losing where it says, where you're saying it should be private if it's public information.
Well, your process, you know what? It is public information. It is. You can check out the statement of cash flow 95. That's public. Financial Accounting Standards Board Statement 140 on set off. That's public. You affidavit of Walker Todd, Modern Money Mechanics. There are a lot of different things out there that you can, the Federal Reserve circulars. There are a lot of different things out there that is public information that will substantiate what we are saying. But they can't allow any kind of ruling like that to set some type of precedence in court, because let me ask you a question. What would happen to the country if nobody paid house notes or car notes?
You know what? I think it'd be a better place. I just do, but I can't really speculate. I can't speculate on that. But what I can say is this, though: when you have made a statement about, you said, well, when they read House Joint Resolution, they're saying like there's no secret accounts. But if an individual would come back and ask them, well, what exactly are the Chris accounts where your signature is creating money? So it's like they can't have it both ways. I mean, if you're saying there's no secret account, then when I'm signing these negotiable instruments and these indictments, how's it going into the Chris accounts and you guys are making money?
Right, right. And they hide, that's private information. I mean, it's like they got Chris accounts. Obviously, there's a document that I presented to everybody where it shows that they securitize each one of these cases. An indictment itself is a negotiable instrument. An indictment it's money. It's a check. But most people don't know that because they don't know what the elements that are necessary. That's what fraud in the factum is. Fraud in the factum is when you are presented with a document and you haven't been made aware that it is a negotiable instrument. The applications for car contracts are negotiable instruments. They securitize these things. I mean, I went into a dealership to buy a car with cash.
Do they have to file an 8300 form paying taxes? It's a cash deposit. Do they have to pay taxes when they take these negotiable instruments and they're making funds off of it? Go ahead.
You signed it. Your signature is the money. When you sign it, you're signing at your value to it. It's quiet title to the money.
Then isn't there something filed with the IRS that they're making money off? I mean, there's a paper trail somewhere, because it seems like the more that I listen to the show, it's like I'm learning more. But it seems like if they're making money off your signature, there's a document somewhere that needs to be filed with the IRS as a cash deposit. And that's what you ask for 1099 OID, because OIDs they securitize car notes and they securitize mortgages. And that's when they fill out the tax form, they do a 1099 OID. And on a 1099 OID, it identifies who the issuer and the recipient of the funds is, especially on the 8281. Now, you can read publication 1212 that references the OID. Now, if you look under the UCC for the definition of issuer, it is the maker or drawer of these negotiable instruments, which is you.
Right. And they also gonna file a 1099-A on that to back themselves up. And exactly. The 1099-A will give it a value. The 1099-A gives it a value, an amount.
If you move property.
You thought it was what?
1099-A. I thought that was an abandoned property.
No, it's for acquisition or abandonment. It's not just for abandonment. It's acquisition for abandonment. And what is abandoned property? That is the word that you're looking for. That is that they file that because they have an accounts payable that they have to account for, that they owe money back to you. This is why I said you have to understand GAAP and the matching principle and how accounting works. Because there is an accounts receivable and accounts payable every time a loan is made. Because they don't have any money. They don't have any money. When promissory notes today are utilized as money, and they can treat it as a liability instrument or a draft, and they treat it as a draft because when you look on the back of the promissory note, they put paid to the order of.
That's correct.
Exactly. That's what that means. Why do you think? See, these guys, they're looking at, they don't know what that means. They go, well, they write paid to order on the plan. So that's a lot of people out there got copies of their promissory note where it got paid to the order of. It's a draft. They're treating your promissory note as a draft. The property is paid for. You made a deposit in a financial institution, just like if you walked in Bank of America and took a $100 bill in there and made a deposit. They have to lodge it on their books as an asset because now they got $100. You just loaned them $100, but it's also a liability because they got to give it back to you. But what they do is they do off-balance sheet accounting, and they hide that payable side from you in these mortgage transactions, and they keep it. And then you wonder why a CEO of a corporation gets a $30 and $40 million bonus. Y'all are paying for that.
Exactly. So they filed 1099 on that also, that's right?
Say what?
What was that?
You go through foreclosure, they'll file 1099 that you abandoned that property. That's correct also, right?
Well, I can't understand.
You abandon it if you don't come within 30 days of finishing the transaction. You abandon it.
If you look on each one of those documents, they have a corrected too, where you can correct it because we file corrections on them all the time because they'll go ahead and file that and say that you abandoned it. It's a claim. If you don't counteract their claim, there's nothing. Silence is acquiescence under the law. What you do, you can go into court. You can go into court and subpoena duces check these documents we're talking about. They ain't gonna want to give them to you. They're not gonna want to give it to you. You know what I'm saying? You say, okay, well, you're saying you're a creditor. If you are a creditor, then your accounting should reflect that you are a creditor.
Right.
That's correct. Well, Yusef, I'm gonna get ready to go. I want to hog the phone because I could keep you on the phone forever. But one more thing I want to add before I go is that with these attorneys, now I got this from I believe Randy Kelton, right? And he said like a lot of times when you file bar grievance against these attorneys, if you file two of them, they can have their insurance pulled off from under them. Have you ever heard that?
It's just like an insurance claim. I mean, if you get too many claims against you, your insurance company drops you.
But they said 2 in 1 year. They said 2 in 1 year. So I'm gonna look that up. If I can find out I find out how true it is, I'll let the family know. But from my understanding, if these attorneys, because they act like they can do anything, and they get 2 bar agreements filed on them within 1 year, their insurance will be dropped. So I'm going to look that up. I don't know if you know about it or JT knows about it, but I'm going to look that up for the family. Because these attorneys are really the gatekeepers, for what's going on.
Right. I agree. They're trying to make money.
Right.
Okay.
You're having a nice day. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, appreciate it, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me go to the next caller real quick. I think this is Pennsylvania too. This is 267. There you go. We got a lot of people in Pennsylvania today. 267-4350. Pennsylvania.
Hey,
what's going on?
How you doing? Hey, listen, I was calling because I heard Brother Bay talk about these Zimbabwe notes, and I actually have over $40.5 billion worth of Zimbabwe notes. What can I actually do with these things? They actually worth something?
How many you got?
$40.5 billion notes.
Woo, 40. How many billion? Or trillion?
40. 40
billion.
I got 40 billion.
40 million?
Yes. I have two 20 billion notes and one 500 million note.
You mean you got but you don't have a trillion notes, right?
I don't have the trillion note, no.
You don't have any trillion notes. Well,
I don't.
I don't know whether they'll cut any zeros off of that because a billion is I think 6 zeros, and you could probably get I think you can get maybe either 11 cents or 22 cents off of that times the amount that you're talking. It's either 11 cents or 22 cents. At 22 cents, you're still looking at 22 million. And at 11 cents, you're looking at 11 million.
That's interesting because, we just came back from Zimbabwe in April of last year, and they were selling these for like one Federal Reserve note. He was like giving them away. So we just got a couple to select, and I got on the call because I was going to piggyback that, hey, just like the Zimbabwe note could fall, has fallen, the Federal Reserve note, will fall. And then I heard that it was actually worth something. That's why I called this to verify.
Yes.
So
they are worth something. I would definitely take them to a trader. You could take them to a currency trader right now and find out what their values are. They will tell you what the values are. They're going to ask you what year it is on the note too. Because if it's 2008 is a good year, is a good vintage.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are actually 2008.
Okay, you got good notes. Those are good.
Okay. All of them are 2008. Yeah, all of them.
But you're good. Those are historic notes. Those are good. You got money.
So I go to a currency trader, and they're about 11 cents per zero. You're saying?
Yeah, per note. You got 6 zeros, so you still good. You good. You got 11 million, or you got 22 million. It just depends on the numbers that you got on them.
When you say 22 million, what is it going to be equal to? Is that Federal Reserve notes? Is that lawful money gold? What is that equal to?
Well, whatever they're going to give you, you're going to take it and run, and you can convert it to whatever you want to convert it after that. If it's 22 million in Federal Reserve notes, you can transfer that into gold or silver. Okay.
Oh, I got it.
There's a company out of Germany, and this is just something that just came across. A MasterCard card will put that gold on your MasterCard, and you can take it in gold. Is
that the company that has the carrot bars?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I have an account with them. They're the one they charge like $63 per gram.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's the same company. Okay. Wow. Okay. I have an
28,
account with
and
them.
it's 28, and it's 28 grams to an ounce. You know that from the old days.
Yes, exactly. Wow. So I can actually contact that company, and they can actually do the trade for me.
They can do the trade for you.
For those Zimbabwe notes.
For those Zimbabwe notes, and you can turn them right into gold. And you can put it on a card and walk around with it.
That is unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. Wow. Well, you just made my day, Brother Bell. You made my day. And I'm going to go ahead and continue listening to the show.
All right.
All right. Thanks so much. All right.
You're right.
Peace.
All right. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Let's go back to the phones real quick. Let's get over to, let's see, we got in the area of, we'll get down to Florida real quick, see what's going down in Florida. 561-1665, Florida. You're on High Frequency Radio. Did you have a question or comment for our guest?
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. And I want to just thank Brother Bay for doing all the research he had and sharing it with the people. I had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just missed like 30 minutes of what you guys were just talking about. I'm going to have to go back in the archives, so hopefully I'm not repeating a question. But it has to do with foreclosures and fraudulent conveyances of property. The question I have for you is, if something like this occurred 9 years ago, could you still backtrack through the IRS, through the 3949 form, to try to locate where the money is from the promissory note?
I would say my first response would be no, because I heard they don't go past 3 years.
Right.
You know, they don't go past 3 years. They don't keep anything past 3 years. So my first response to that would be no, you can't. But I've heard people say that they 1099A things that are much, much older. And let me talk about the 1099 OID real quick, because I heard somebody say people go to jail for 1099 OIDs, and they do. They do go to jail for 1099 OIDs. My experience, my personal experience with 1099 OID, because I had an office in Georgia where I met a lot of different people with OIDs. And so I had people who would come to my office who had federal cases lodged against them for doing OIDs, and I have people who came to my office and who got their checks for their OIDs and showed me the checks, and I have copies of those checks. I have copies of those checks that they let me have. So I've seen this stuff. It's not no myth or anything to me. I've seen the stuff that these people present and have in my office. As a matter of fact, there was one guy who used to come to my office. These guys were partners in a bank. And they were like, man, these people are bringing these checks through from the IRS, $800,000, $700,000, and he wanted to know if I knew how to do a 1099 OID process. And these guys have an interest in a bank, because we put holes on the checks and everything, and they still go through, you know. So he had heard about me. He wanted to know. So it's like, so when I talk about things, it's my personal experience and seeing, because, you know, I had my doubts too. You have doubts about things, and then you'll just all of a sudden come across things and you're like, damn, this is some real stuff, you know. And then you'll see that the IRS will come in and they don't want the information out. So when you look at the people who call cases, one thing you'll see that is a common denominator of all the people with the 1099 OID is they were teaching or taking money or doing seminars or something like that. That's when the IRS comes in and shuts you down. They didn't shut you down just for doing the 1099 OID. They shut you down because you out here teaching other people how to do 1099 OIDs and making a profit and a gain off of it. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm the type of person, I read cases. I go read the cases. I go read the cases. Okay, why are these people getting locked up? But go ahead. But what I'm alluding to is you lost your property. There may be some small possibility if you can't get the property back that you can 1099. Because I see that you are you're listening to the show every day. And at some point, you're going to have to either, because I see that you're diligent, you need to call the IRS. Because I've had people do this. They contacted the IRS. The IRS told them what to do. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people won't talk to the IRS because they think the IRS is their enemy. Call the IRS up and ask them, look, I'm about to do this, and then explain. This is another thing that I see about them. It's like I went down, I took my friend just to show him what I was talking about. I said, let's go down to the IRS and let's get the individual master file. Let's go down there and talk to him about an individual master file. So we go down to the IRS, and I walk in, and I said, excuse me, ma'am, we need to talk to somebody about individual master file. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, an individual master file? We don't know anything about that. This is how they're talking to me. So I said, ma'am, do I need to pull out the Internal Revenue Code on you? Do I really have to do that right now? Mm-hmm. And then she looked at me and smiled and said, well, you know, copies of it cost $40. And my friend was just like, I can't believe that. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, they will hide information from you. All right, they don't want you to know certain things. They damn sure don't want you to. Well, if the individual master file is not anything important, then why do they put it in a coded format? Why do you have to decode it?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. But you know what you do when you go into the IRS, what I've learned when in the years of dealing with them, you have to pin their ears back when you first get in there. What you have to do is you have to ask them for their federal ID and their local ID, whatever state they're in. You have to look at both IDs, but you have to write down their numbers, let them know you write their numbers down, because in the old days, they used to go by Mr. Green, Mr. Blue, Mr. Gray, and all those things, and you wouldn't know what agent you dealt with. You have to know the identity of that agent, and they have to show you their ID. So when they show you their ID, you write their names down, you write their ID number down, and if they do something that's egregious, you can report them to their supervisor, and they will get slapped on their knuckles. So they don't want that, so they will treat you differently than they treat the guy off the street, because he don't know nothing. But you have to know something to ask for the ID. Ask for the ID.
And that's why I listen to the show. So, you know, like Yusef, sometimes I interrupt with you because I've listened to a lot of your archives, so I kind of know, you know, where you're heading with certain things, and I've listened to that. But, like, what I'm talking about with this particular property, you know, when you had the show with Gene Keating, he was talking about errors and omissions through the title company, through, you know, things that weren't disclosed. And so when I contacted the insurance commissioner, they were saying, oh, well, you have to contact the bar because this title company went out of business. But I'm telling you, this particular title company targeted me for my property. They were the purchaser of the property, and the reason why is because it's a hot spot in Florida. And, you know, so now I'm trying to backtrack so that I have the right verbiage when I'm speaking to the bar representative, because that's the ones that the insurance commission is saying that I need to speak with to say, okay, wait a second, I need to backtrack the accounting of what happened with this property because I believe I've been bamboozled. And so,
you need to go and face them and get their ID so you can see the numbers on their ID card, and then you got something you can deal with. You got to leverage because now you know who told you that crap. Because they'll say, I never said that. Well, they have their word against theirs. But if you got their ID in their names, you got a smoking gun, say, I was in front of this person and they said this and that. They have to prove otherwise, not you.
And then I always like to write them. I just like to get stuff, because he's absolutely correct. Because they tell you something. I tell people this all the time on this show. You're making phone calls to people and everything. They tell you anything they want you on the telephone. You can't be presented as evidence in court.
No, everything. I actually send them emails. And they sent me an email, the insurance commissioner, because I was like, okay, I need to file a claim against because this was a lawyer that did this with me, and so I said I need to file a claim with this title company, but they're out of business. But I need to find out who's in charge of their errors and omissions now that they're out of business. Now, Gene Keating was saying that it might be National Fidelity because they all kind of got bought up by, you know, a larger company. But so they're saying, oh, well, with any of that, you need to contact the bar because it was a bar attorney that did this to me, and he also owned the title company. But what I want to do is I want to kind of go in there with the right questions so that I can show where he did me over.
He sounds like he was a conflict of interest if he owned the company and he also making the decision. That's a conflict of interest.
He bought it for his daughter, supposedly.
No, that's still a conflict of interest. It's a conflict of interest. Because it's related party. It's a related party transaction. It goes into accounting. So his accounting is going to be out.
Would he need to show all of his accounting, even though he went out of business, and even though this was 9 years ago?
Yep. He has to show because it's fraud, and there's no statute of limitation on fraud. It's whenever you get fraud.
And if they use my name to buy a house, could I go back and redeem that as well? If they did identity theft to purchase another property.
Yeah, you didn't authorize that. You didn't sign that. You didn't sign no document saying that, and it has to be in a writing for it to be valid. You can't be hearsay or somebody saying, well, she signed it. Well, where's the document? Where did she sign? Where did she give her approval? It's called tacit approval. You did not tacitly approve any of that.
Okay. So since he was the lawyer and since he was the title company, he needs to bring the documents to the table.
Yes, he does. And they all have to have your signature on them. If your signature is not on them, that's fraud. He's committed fraud. And that's triple damages for whatever he caused you.
Okay, great. And I just mentioned one other thing real quick, too. And I actually sent a letter regarding another property of mine. I sent it to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and they sent me this letter back. First of all, they're trying to say, oh, we got it like two weeks later than it was actually sent through registered mail. And it's just like, it's saying, oh, you can't send a letter to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. This is the clerk saying this, right? And then when he signed it, he just signed it with some scribble. Like it's not even like a real signature. So I was just going to mention that he sent me this letter like all ghetto fabulous,
Well, you could prevent a lot of that by filing it in PS 3877. Are you familiar with that form?
Okay, PS
3877. It's a postal.
Is that IRS?
No, that's post office. When the post office is over a lot of people don't know that they have a lot of power because they're the first thing that a republic always put together is a post office. And a PS 3877 works like this. You get the document. On the left side, you put what it is in the document. And in the middle of the page, you put the address. And on the right side of the page, you can either, do some other things. But the most important thing on this document is that the postmaster signs that document. He signs off on that document stating that document was mailed and received the date it was mailed. It's called the Mailbox Rule. Most people don't understand that, and I carried that for a long time because the Mailbox Rule is rule supreme because when the mailman put it in the box, you are deemed to receive it that day. Okay, and there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. So when you get a document that's important, make sure you put it in a PS 3877. It's firm mailing for accountable mail. You go to the post office and you ask for a book. You can go to the U.S. Postal Service website and get one sheet, but you want to get a whole book of them so you can keep them in that book. And anybody challenge you, that mail was received the day it was mailed. So that cut all the crap out. Okay.
Does that work for a registered mail? Because I put it registered mail. I put stamps on the document itself, and they were still playing games.
You don't need to play that game. You could play. Okay. You play postal when it goes through this procedure with the post office. It is deemed by the postmaster to be received the date you mailed it.
Excellent.
Period.
Period. Excellent. But just one other thing before I let you go. With that too, I'll tell you another thing on the envelope. I put zip code exempt when I mailed it, and they put some zip code on it that's not even the zip code, that would be that may be attached to that address. And so I was just going to return it to sender.
No, that's why you put the address of the document in your PS 3877, and that's the book you keep. You keep a copy, and the postmaster keeps a copy.
Can I backtrack on that and with the letter?
Or
no? If it was sent registered mail?
If it was sent registered mail, you can, because there's a date on it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for all of that information. Have a great day, and I'm going to keep listening.
All right.
All right, thank you, sister. And I wanted to add something to all my listeners out there. There was, when I was talking about the 1099 OID, there used to be this series of videos on YouTube by this little cartoon character called Dorothy Gale. Dorothy Gale was one of the characters in The Wizard of Oz. And one in particular, you can try to Google it if you can find it, is Dorothy Gale and the CID, the Criminal Investigation Division, where she receives a visit from a black guy. He's an IRS Criminal Investigation Division authority, and he's there to question her about why she filed this 1099 OID. The first time I showed this video in a seminar of mine, it wasn't a week later, it was taken off the Internet. Today, you can't even hardly find any of those videos on the Internet. They take them off the Internet left and right. And if y'all don't believe me, you go back and y'all check on that. It's called Dorothy Gale, CID. See if you can find a copy of it. Very difficult video to find. As a matter of fact, they're snatching all of her stuff off of the Internet. Because she has a very, very good way of teaching about this stuff. But let me go back to the phone lines real quick. Let me dip over to area code 713 and see what that is. 713, which is Texas. Let me dip over to Texas real quick. Texas, 713-3906. You're on High Frequency Radio. Did you have a question or comment for our guest?
Yes, sir. How you doing today, gentlemen?
Great. How you doing?
Good. Hey, well, my first comment or question would be, please let us know when you do that webinar regarding putting together those trusts.
It's going to be this weekend. Okay. I'm sending out the emails today. But go ahead.
Because, the reason I'm very interested in it, and I know Yusef, when I start saying this, you'll know who I am. I've been doing this Bitcoin thing for about a few months, and I've been getting pretty deep into it. And these boys on Wall Street beat me to the punch because they already put together two of them. The first trust came in with about $69 million. The second one that's put together about a month ago, they're bringing in about $147 million, with the requirement of a $250,000 entry fee. I mean, they're organized.
Yeah, well, you need that. The SEC requires that for you to be a sophisticated investor.
That's right.
I think you have to have at least $250,000 as a single individual. I think it's like $350,000 if it's joint or something like that. Yeah, but you can't even get into the game as an investor unless you got $250,000. But that, which is very interesting because, like Tony King was talking about, that's also the insurance on. I think it's on checking accounts now. It's like the FDIC insurance or something matches up with that. It's real. That's another story. But the way that they're doing it is they're putting everything in trust, man.
Yeah, and this is a private. And this first trust they put together called the BIT, the Bitcoin Investment Trust. The first paragraph it tells you this is a private trust. They're telling you because the Bitcoin is a private currency. It's a peer-to-peer.
Exactly.
It's going to take the central banks out of existence inside of 2 years, And what I did some research on Bitcoin, and I'm interested in it. When I intend to spend at least $3 to $5 million in Bitcoin as soon as it RVs. And the rate of return on Bitcoin is something phenomenal that I hadn't seen as an accountant. It's 280% to 463% on Bitcoin right now.
Right. And they've Mr. B, that's why I want to get your take on the Bitcoin, because there's a couple levels deeper, and I think we should talk about maybe on that webinar when it comes to the actual mining of these cryptocurrencies, because I see that's a lot of value if you can get in on that level too. So I'm just very interested to find out. Again, I'm just studying this trust too, Yusef. I got the book by Mr. Ozak. I've been reading them, and very interesting stuff. Very, very good.
Well,
book.
also what's going on too, that you need to get the sovereign investor, and I did some research. I did some research through that, and one of the research guys who goes to Europe a lot is talking about the emerging markets in Europe, like in Estonia and in Russia with the Russian beer, and in Norway with the farm-raised salmon, because the waters in the Pacific is poisoned now because of Fukushima.
Right.
So, people going to be eating fish and going to be lighting up because we've got, uranium and stuff in it, so they ain't going to live long eating that type of food. So there's a lot of markets that are opening up, and I've just been doing tremendous research on how to do that. And there's a gentleman in also that same organization. His name is Chris Orr. He uses the weather to predict the stock market, and he's been batting 1,000 on that. So
what's
you have
his name?
to just do Chris Orr. Chris Orr. O-R-R. O-R-R.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And see, you follow these guys because they're always on the money. And when I saw Bill Gates and Warren Buffett on the Bitcoin program, I knew it was something that was just telling the wealthy people, get on board. And our people need to get on board with this Bitcoin, because $1,000 in 2009 is now worth $740,000.
It's amazing. Yes, sir. Well, I'll look at that email, Yusef. Appreciate you, brother.
You're welcome.
Hey, no problem. No problem, brother. No problem. For everybody out there, if you want to be a participant in the webinar this weekend, you're going to have to email me at highfrequencyblogtalk@gmail.com. And this is going to be a serious webinar, right? And when we start getting into trust talk, you're getting into a lot of, and I'm going to be having a series of trust. I'm going straight into trust, because you hear me talk about it all the time. But the thing about it is when you start looking at these investment corporations and everything, if we're going to get our communities back together, if you're going to start, bringing revenue back into the communities and start funding projects and everything, you have to do it through trust. This is what they do, okay? We have to start emulating success. And we have to start doing things on a bigger scale. And we have to start trusting each other also. This is why it's called a trust. But once you begin to understand the mechanics of a trust and the dynamics of its function and its operation, you'll begin to understand why this is the overall best vehicle for wealth accumulation and distribution. It's just the best that there is, all right? And it's time for us to start getting educated about things like this. Especially what's really, really valuable is individuals who are able to manage a trustees. So we're going to get into some of that this weekend, and we're going to get into the discussion about that. And this is going to be a very, very in-depth webinar. We're going to be presenting a lot of good information that is not easily accessible in other places. And I'm going to be doing a series on this, so, over the next following weeks. But let me go to the next caller. Let me dip over to, let's see where we at right now. We've got another person coming out of Texas. Yep, another caller coming out of Texas. Texas, 469-9395. You're on High Frequency Radio.
Peace and honor to both of you all.
Peace, brother. How you doing?
Great. It's a very informative show. Much respect to President Mugabe. You know, I had a chance to view a film about what was going on in Zimbabwe, and the film is not really in the mainstream. It's called Mugabe, Villain or Hero, and that was by Roy Acumen or something like that. But my question is in purchasing Zimbabwe currency, how do you know which brokers are legit when you go into purchasing these currencies or even the dinar?
How you purchase the dinar? How you purchase the dinar?
No, I'm saying for the brokers that you purchase them from. How do you know if they're legit? If I'm not really sure.
Better Business Bureau. You could just check the name out, call a Better Business Bureau, and they can tell you how long they've been in business and what are their high points and low points.
Okay.
I mean, you said this is okay because Zimbabwe is not a dinar trade, but dinar trade seems to be pretty legit.
Yeah. So even with the dinar, you said just once you find some sites or brokers, then you just want to check them on Better Business Bureau. That's the way you can find out if they're legit or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They'll tell you whether they're legit or not.
Gotcha. Now I got one other question. If you're a business owner and you haven't perfected privacy and dealing with trust and things of that nature, what business entity do you recommend, and how do you actually obtain EIN number without actually using the SS5 number?
You mean you've got an SS4? You did an SS4?
I'm saying without using a Social Security number. Like if first, what business entity do you recommend doing, whether it be an S Corp, LLC, sole proprietorship?
Well, you could use a trust, and you could break the numbers down like you do a social. That's what I do sometimes. I do the 3, the 2, and the 4. You break the numbers down. The SS4 is a 9-digit number, just like the social. You break it down like that, and you can utilize that as if somebody asks you your social, you can give them your EIN number. If you're the trustee, it'll roll back to you being a trustee of that entity, and they'll think that that's your social.
Well, let me touch on something else you said, because I think he wants to know what type of business entity is optimal in conducting business and then not using your Social Security number. Correct. The 9A number is a private trust number. Identifies a trust. These numbers, that's what Jonah Bade, we did a show together, and he was talking about, obtaining one of those numbers for a trust. But as far as doing business, optimally, you still can use a C Corp and an S Corp or LLC or some other type of entity for some sorts of businesses. In my opinion, I'm looking at an unincorporated business organization or a common law trust or a private trust for investment purposes, for real estate, for big acquisitions and things of that nature. But it depends on what you're trying to utilize a trust for. You can utilize a trust off of a small amount of money, but you have to understand that when you convey property into a trust, you're not the owner of the property anymore. You need to have some good trust management. I mean, there is a lot of details into setting up a business to operate through a trust, to operate property through a trust. So it may not be ideal for you to utilize a trust for whatever type of thing that you're into. But there are other things that, it'll be optimal for. So, like for instance, we're on this phone talking about these dinars and everything. That would be something that would be optimal for that. Real estate investment trust, that's something that would be optimal for that. So not every business, I think, is ideal for, the utilization of a private trust. That's my opinion. That's just my opinion.
Got you. Right now, I operate under LLC, but of course, I've called in and been listening to you for some time now, and have not really perfected on the private side of things. And I really don't want to do anything until I've actually learned and studied everything for myself, to where I can fully understand it. But at the same time, when you operate in different entities other than a trust, then you have an interest. Say you go and get an EIN number. One of the things that they're going to ask you for is who's the. They're going to ask you for a Social Security number, pretty much.
Yeah, I didn't give them one.
Yeah,
when I did that,
they're going to ask for the grantor. The grantor is the one who gives up their number. But the grantor with the IRS, he drops off the moment they give you the EIN number. They have no dealings with the grantor. So you can bring in anybody that acts as that carrier pigeon for the social. You could get your kid, give his social, because if he's the grantor settler, he's dismissed the moment that they give the ball to the trustee.
Now, when you're saying grantor settler, you're talking about a trust, correct? You're not talking about any other entity.
I'm talking about the person who creates trust.
No, right. I understand it, but you're saying create the trust, not in like a LLC or anything like that.
No,
you
strictly on the trust, or them asking you. Well, the trust structure has a position called the grantor settler. He's the one that creates the trust and funds the trust. But after that, there is no more business with the IRS and that person and that grantor settler. In fact, if you call back right after you got your number and you tell them you're a grantor settler, they tell you they can't talk to you.
Wow. So the grantor and settler, once they actually set it up, now that person cannot do business within the actual entity, correct?
Yes, they could. They could be an officer, or you could eventually make them a backup trustee, or any of that. They just used that hat when they were creating the trust as a grantor settler. They were the one that funded the trust in actuality. But your funding is basically tacit, because you're just using your name and your social as a vehicle, and that's like cash, because you can't go anywhere unless you got a grantor settler. You can't make it a complete trust until you've got those parties, and that party represents the money. So you have them hold the mantle for you until you can get in as a trustee. When the trustee cannot be questioned about anything regarding the trust because it's private.
Wow. So even whether it's a service business or not, it really doesn't matter what business is being conducted, correct?
Nope, it's personal. That has nothing to do with any other party. That's just you and whatever you're doing. As long as it's lawful, you can do it.
As long as it's lawful, you just said something major. He said as long as it's lawful, that means actually setting up the entity properly. Let me ask you, will you be having a class on this here, on that specifically, that subject?
That's the webinar that Brother Yusef is talking about on Saturday. That's what we're going to be talking about.
Great.
We're going to be talking about that and other deep stuff in terms of how these trusts actually work and what you have to do. A lot of people forget that the trust operates under statutes of fraud. And under statutes of fraud, you must have everything that's over $500 in writing. And anything dealing with real estate must be in a writing. It must be. And if you don't do that, you violated the tenets of the trust.
So when you say anything, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go on. I'm listening.
So you were saying anything over $500. So are you talking about transactions? Say if I go to someone's place of business or their home and I do a transaction over $500. You're talking about a counter?
You got to go back and put it in your minutes that you did business with Joe Blow and you gave him $630 for this, that, and the other. And you put that in your book, and it's got to be listed as a transaction that you did on that particular date. So
anything over 500.
Anything over 500. It's 600. That's over 5. So, you got to put that in writing, and most people forget to do that, and they mess themselves up because when they track that transaction and find out you did it, you violated that trust. That trust can be put to the side. That trust can be, shut down. You don't want that because you got to start all over. You got to start from the back of the line. You don't want to start from the back of the line. You want to do it correct. And anything dealing with real estate's got to be in writing. You've got to follow the law as it's written. That's why you have to know what the law is in the beginning.
So when you say law, are you talking about what IRS codes or something? I mean, what should be
what the IRS says and what the trust is. The law of the trust is you must keep your business documents in order and current. So if you got a transaction or anything that's going down today, you must put it in your book today, not tomorrow, today, to keep it current. Because tomorrow you may have 4 or 5 other transactions. You got to put them in that day to keep you on track. Otherwise, you're going to get off track and you're going to have a mess on your hands. So you got to do it when it happens to keep your books current. Because you're going to have a minute book, and that book going to fill up real quick. So you need to put your minutes in 2 places. One place in your office and another place away from your office, just in case the place burned down. You still need your minutes.
Wow. And I know that different states, like the state of Texas, they have a section that strictly talks about trust in the states. Is that something that should be studied or it's relevant, or should I be studying?
Yes, you need to study anything related to a trust until you have a working knowledge of how to maneuver and how to go through things and what to look out for so you don't have no pitfalls, because a pitfall could cost you. So you don't want to be fined or penalized in any of this for your life.
Yeah, if you're looking at something in the state of Texas, that would be a statutory trust, and it would be subject to some sort of statutory regulation. So once again, people would have to understand there is a difference between public and private. If there is a public trust, it's probably going to be, subject to a rule or regulation or code of the particular state that you're in. But when we talk about a private trust, it means it's not subject to that regulation. And in order to make sure that it maintains that status, it has to be managed properly.
Wow.
Management is the key to this deal, and it's all about your writing in your minute book and to keep your minutes up to date. That's what it's about. And if you
that minute book is very important.
Yes. And you keep that up to date, you will be straight most of the time because you can reflect back to what you just done, and you can determine what status is it in now. Is it going forward or is it stagnant?
Gotcha. It seemed really confusing, so much to the point to where, Brother Yusef, you always talk about public and private, but then I always thought that trusts were private in itself, but then you just hit me with statutes of a trust. I'm talking about a trust, talking about statutory jurisdiction or something dealing with the statutory laws here in Texas. And I always
you have statutory trust. You have trust that are subject to statute. Am I right, JT?
Yes, sir.
Man,
yeah, you got trust.
I thought all trusts were private.
No,
they are
private.
They are private, but you're dealing in the public too. So that's why you have to have those minutes to track what you've done and to confirm what you've done. And you got your receipts to show that you did a transaction for X amount, and you got it in your minute book.
Let me put it like this. It basically comes down to taxation when you talk about privacy, whether you're engaged in an activity that is a taxable activity or not. And, that's why the setting up of the trust is so important. There could be activities of the trust that you, due to the trustee's mismanagement, that would subject it to some sort of statutory rule or regulation. So that's really what it comes down to. It is a private entity, but is it taxable or is it not taxable? That's kind of what public and private kind of breaks down to. Public is, you're engaged in some type of activity that is effectively connected to a trade or business of the United States, and it can be taxed. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Traffic tickets are a tax. Going to prison is a tax. These are taxes. These are taxes. I remember an attorney told me and a lot of people don't understand that, what I just said. Now, I didn't understand what it was first told to me, and the first person to ever tell me that was an attorney, a very prominent attorney in Georgia. And he told me, I had a case, and I said, matter of fact, I just went to him and said, man, can I pay my way out of this mess? And he's like, nah, man, you can't pay your way out of this. He said, but I'm going to tell you something. Let me just give you a piece of advice. Pay your taxes. I'm looking at him. I'm like, man, what are you talking about, man? I'm a hustler. what are you talking about? This don't have nothing to do with no taxes. But yes, it did. And this is why when you study 27 CFR 72.11, the first thing on that list is violations of the Internal Revenue Code. And people don't know what that means because they don't know all. 27 CFR 72.11, Code of Federal Regulations. All right? And that's what this CRIS is all about, Court Registry Investment System. The Court Registry Investment System is tied to the Treasury Department, and the accounting arm for the Treasury Department is the IRS. That's why you can put in an IRS Form 56. You look at the bottom of it, got a place down there for the court. The IRS is behind all of this. They're behind everything, okay? Because the country is bankrupt. The country is bankrupt. We don't own nothing in this country. Every activity that's going on in this country is a taxable activity that's going to pay the creditors. These statutes, when you study the statute merchant, these statutes are an index of how they are collecting money and drafting. What they're doing is they're taking your private rights and bringing it into public to pay the national debt. And this is why you hear me say on this show about the acceptance for value, because as a 14th Amendment citizen, one of the prerequisites of that is the debt shall not be questioned. And these statutes are put in place to collect debts. They are debt collectors. That's what you can look this up. It's called statute merchant. But a person who has not studied this and has not had experience with this would not be able to see any of the things that I'm talking about. You'd have to study a mercantile admiralty law to understand. If you just study admiralty, you'll begin to understand a lot of stuff. Because you'll see, okay, I see what they're doing. Because you'll see the connection. Because anytime you talk about bonding, like for instance, when you get arrested and you get a bond, anything that's doing with bonding necessarily has some type of admiralty associated with it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You on the sea. You on the water. You got to do what the captain said.
I put a picture on my Facebook. I put a picture on my Facebook of the federal building in Miami. It is built just like a ship. And I put it on the screen, too. People look at it. Yeah, it's built just like a ship. Built just like a ship. You know what I'm saying? They're showing you, what are they saying to you? Do you think that they just did that for aesthetic purposes? Do you really believe that?
You're on the water. The captain is in charge. And see, when the thing about it is, when we go back to gold and silver, which we should be on via the Constitution. Article 1, Section 12 of the Constitution says nothing but gold and silver coins should be a payment of debt. When we go back to that, then you won't have to worry about certain things like that because it won't be effective anymore. And when you go to gold and silver coin, there is no more admiralty. There's common law. Common law is the best law. Okay, that's what we used the first 100 years in the United States, and it worked.
And here's the trick that Roosevelt played in 1933. The Constitution is in still force in effect, but what they had to do is people would have to understand how the Congress has plenary power over all of its insular possessions and its territories. It is very vital to understand Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution, because the Congress is not subject to the Constitution when they are administering or they are governing over their own territory or their own insular possessions. Right? That is why the U.S. citizen thing is so important, and that's why they could bring this fiat currency in. They brought this fiat currency in because when they made everybody a U.S. citizen, they took you out of that jurisdiction of the Constitution and put you into another jurisdiction called the United States, where they had the power to do whatever they wanted to do. And all this stuff is owned by them. All these federally insured banks, all this stuff is owned by them.
Well, you can get out of that by revocation of election. And we got a document that we got to figure out whether it's real or not, because it talked about, it was 9 pages of rock'em sock'em, and we want to know, we got to do some research to find out, is this a real document or is it bogus? Because it shows you in that the enclave, the federal enclave, if you're not a federal employee and you're not in Washington, D.C., then you're not subject to any tax, period. You're not taxable at all. But
also, you'll notice in the IRS code, when you have a trustee who is a U.S. citizen or beneficiaries who are U.S. citizens, there's going to be some type of tax liability associated with that too. So the construction of the trust has to be done very carefully. The status of the trust is important. All these things are important because the United States, people have to understand is that if it is effectively connected with a trade or business of the United States, and people need to understand under Title 15 USC, I think it's 3002, or is it 28 USC 3002, United States is a corporation.
Yes.
All right? They are a corporation. They issue stocks and bonds like any other corporation, i.e. the birth certificates. All these different things that you will see and everything, but you have to understand all of this stuff, and you'll begin to paint a picture in your mind that it is all about taxes. It is all about taxes.
And it's domiciled in Virginia. The United States Court is domiciled in Virginia.
Yeah, see, I understand what it is you said. I've been listening to you enough to know there was a loop thrown to me with trust and knowing that it can be public and private. Now, as far as private status, would you get into that in this webinar? If you in private status, will you be told how to operate within that?
In my opinion, yes, definitely. In my opinion, in studying trust law, like we just said earlier, it's about management of trust. It's your conduct and your activities that you engage in. It's like this. Let me see if I can give a simple example. It's like you saying that you're a sovereign. All right, you saying, look, the United States don't have no power over me. All right, or no, I'll give you a better example. Or like we live in a neighborhood, and you live in your house, and I live in my house, and you put up on your yard private, do not trespass, private property. All right. And I said, okay, he don't want nobody coming on his property. Okay, fine, I won't come on his property. But you come off of your property, come in my house, and go in my refrigerator. And I say, look, man, I said, you can't go in my refrigerator. And then you look out the refrigerator, you say, look, I'm a sovereign. You know what I'm saying? That's what a lot of people do. They say they don't understand sovereignty. They say, I'm a sovereign, but you want to come out of your sovereignty into my house, because the United States is saying you are right, but we are sovereign in our house. And their house is their territory and their insular possession. They have sovereignty over that. You don't have no say-so over that. So in managing the trust, you have to learn how to separate yourself from that and learn how to conduct your business in a way that either you can avoid taxation or reduce your tax exposure. And that is what management is all about.
Exactly.
I hope that's a good example. Is that pretty good, JT? It's my mentor. He's my mentor. He's supposed to be giving me a test and everything.
yeah, I heard the brother several times before, and I really appreciate listening. Yusef, this King Todd, is there some way you can send me a list of the webinars? The previous
yes, I will. Yeah, hit me with the email, and I will say I'll send you a list, brother. I'll get that to you.
All right, it's King Todd. I appreciate it, and thanks. It's always a pleasure listening to y'all. All right, peace.
All right, peace, brother, peace. Thank you. All right. Let me bring in. Who is this? We got a lot of people want to get in on the questions today. A lot of people want to get in the questions today. All right, let me bring in. Somebody said they were panting. I'm panting trying to get in. And you know what? They say they panting trying to get in. I don't see their number nowhere on the list. I don't see no 88. Okay, I'm going to call back in. Okay, you say you're going to call back in. Okay, well, you have to wait now. I'm bringing in the next caller. 11111. You're on High Frequency Radio. Somebody, you got your number. I can't see your number.
Peace to the gods.
Peace to the gods. What's happening, brother?
All is well. Yeah, I was just, I'm getting confused with the, not bringing the private into the public when, I mean, you put everything into, like, your paperwork, and isn't that the reason and the purpose is before you even, like, because we know we don't want to end up into these courtrooms.
Public and private do not mix. And let me just say this. That is what I see with this patriot movement, as people like to affectionately call it, is the main problem that so many people have with things not working for them is that mixing of public and private. They don't know how to stay on the private. Your process has to be private from beginning to end.
Uh-huh.
If anywhere along during that process it crosses over that fence and goes into the public, your process has been tainted. And you can be taxed. That's why I say if you want to really understand it, study trust law and tax law. That's why you don't hear me talk about, if people really pay attention to my show, they will see lately I've been really on a lot of trust talk and tax talk, because I think that is the area of knowledge where people will get the best understanding of public and private. They'll get the best understanding of public and private because in studying trust law or trust management, you are taught how to keep your affairs private. That's what it's all about.
Let's use that same scenario. Let's use that same scenario. Okay, say brother's inside the house and you're on the outside of the house, and the brother's like, "Come on in. I got something privately, And then the other brother like, "No, you're gonna have to bring that outside." He's like, "No, come on in."
I understand. I see where. That's like when he come in, come on across the bar, and so we can have a discussion and everything.
Right. You see what? I love the scenarios because people can understand them a little better, So.
Yeah, I understand exactly where you're going with that, and you're absolutely correct. You can be subject to some type of technology that's going on in the court. The judge will trick you. I've even been in court with some people and heard the judge tell somebody this. That you'll come in there, he'd be trying to do his process, and then the judge will just sit there and look at him and say, "Okay, I'm going to let you know, my next question is a trick question." You're looking at because they gauge who they talking to. They'll say, "Okay, this guy don't know what he's doing." So you'll sit there and ask, "Okay, my next question is a trick question." You let you know I'm going to try to trick you. I'm going to try to trick you. So yeah, you got to watch what you say in the courts, and your paperwork has to be structured in a certain way. Like we were talking earlier, there is a private side of the court. That's what an in-camera proceeding is all about. That's pretty, I mean, look that word up. It's private. Okay, an in-camera proceeding is a private process when you're going into court, presenting yourself privately. You cannot put public information into. You got to look at it like this. You got to look at it like English and Chinese. Chinese is private and the public is English. When you bring private information into the public, it's like you speaking Chinese in the court, and everybody gonna act like they don't know what the hell you talking about. Hey, man, what are you talking about? That's private information. We don't know nothing about that. We only deal with statutes and public stuff. What are you talking about? What are you bringing this private stuff in here for? That's not nothing we deal with in this court. They don't know what you're talking about. You understand? So they're always looking, and that's why they're looking at ways to pierce a trust. When they try to pierce a trust, what they're doing is looking for something that would constitute a taxable activity so they can bring it into the public because it's something that they can talk about. Like, look, this activity you're doing right here, this public stuff. That's not private stuff right here. Look at this right here. Look at this paperwork. That's public stuff he got right there. Same thing with a negotiable instrument. First thing that an investigator does when you hand somebody a negotiable instrument is they take it to an attorney to look at. The attorney's going to look at it, and what he's looking for is, did he put anything on this negotiable instrument that's public? Oh, he put some ABA numbers on there. That's public. We can charge him. We can tax him. We can tax him for that. That's what's going on. That's what's going on. They're looking for you to do some type of activity that will bring you within their jurisdiction. And 9 times, that's what all the license is about, driver's license, marriage license, business license, all these different things and everything, because these are all are evidence that you are subject to some type of statutory authority, which is their domain. You come out of your domain and come into their domain. So, you know, the reservation of really, to me, in my opinion, that, you know, a lot of times when we're dealing with these criminal cases, they already have authority over us because a lot of us, like I said, we haven't corrected our status properly, like Jonah Bay was talking about, which everybody should go and listen to that because that brother really went in on that information. And you just being deemed, and people should look at that word deemed. When you see the word deemed, you need to pause. Because the word deemed is a very, very important word in law. It means that they're establishing a legal fiction. So if you are deemed as a public entity, all right, and you can look up public figure, anyone who voluntarily participates in a public controversy is public. You know, Jesus even said in Matthew 5:35, take care of your affairs privately. That's what he's saying. Agree with your adversary before you get to court. Take care of this privately. Jesus also said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and the Lord what is the Lord's. That was a tax question. I hope people know that. The Pharisees and Sadducees came to him, well, do we have to pay taxes? And they always doing that to me. Are you saying we don't have to pay taxes? And Jesus said, look, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and what is the Lord's, public and private. If it's in the public, yeah, you got to pay taxes. If it's in the private, no, you don't have to pay taxes. That's what it breaks down to. And it's been like that for thousands of years. Hello. Oh, you still there, JT? Y'all all on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
We still here. Go ahead, brother. Don't stop.
Well, I just wanted to put that out there and just, let people start to see it's about public and private. It's about either a taxable activity or non-taxable activity. And they tax it because everything they looking for something to tax. So they can create a debt, because if they can tax it, they can create a debt. They can create a debt, they can create a bond. They can create a bond, they can sell it.
Well, and I believe
Yusef,
that employers count to this word wizardry, where they are wizards of the words, and we need to know these words and the definition and meaning of them, because like I was talking before, it's we grew up learning words, and we use these same words with the same meanings in everything we do. And we're not taught that growing up that these words have different meanings as far as, your social life, the lawful life, the public and the private, and you're not taught that. And I believe that's the downfall of, a lot of people today, a lot of people from from our nationality is we're not taught that. We use the same word and when we use that word we use it in different platforms and trying to make it mean the same thing when it's a different meaning for those different platforms, and that's how we get caught up.
Definitely the meaning of words, but I'm going to tell you like this. They use the true meaning of the word. We use colloquialisms. We're the ones that have been dumbed down and miseducated. All right? The words that they use are the proper meaning of the words. When you study the etymology of the word and the significance of the word, usually, in legalese, it's the proper meaning of the word. They're not using any deception. We're the ones who've been misinformed and been given the wrong meaning of words and the vibratory force that are behind the words, because the words are connected with nature. Everything has to have has an origin and the source of all creation, which people would call God. All right? Because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So I like to ask people this question. They'll talk about like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. I say, okay, what language was God speaking to Adam and Eve in? What was the language they were talking? Because you can't say English. You can't even say Hebrew. Because Hebrew didn't come around until Abraham. He came out of Ur of Chaldea. So you can say Chaldeic, but then, you go back even further than that. So what language, because if whatever language God was speaking to Adam and Eve in, that would have to be the pure language. That would have to be something that is, that is in its purest form and untainted form that God spoke to Adam and Eve in. So
the Christians going to say they were speaking in tongues. They were speaking in tongues, brother. Now what?
I ain't gonna go there. I'm not here to attack any religions today.
No, I'm not either, but I get that all the time. That's what they tell me all the time. I'm just going, just like growing up in school, we only know what we've been taught.
I will say this. I don't know where they got speaking in tongues from. When you go into Acts, what it's called speaking with different tongues. And the miracle of Pentecost was that everybody present was given the ability to speak in another language so they could go out and find the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That was the whole purpose of that. I'm not really sure where they got the speaking of tongues from, because it's really not supported in the Bible, because it lists the languages that they were able to speak. It wasn't in some incoherent babbling that they do today. It lists the different languages that you were able to speak. A true miracle is when you take someone who can't speak another language and then instantly he can speak, like me, I don't speak Japanese, and then instantly somebody wave a hand over me and instantly I'm speaking Japanese. That's a miracle.
Guess what, brother? You just went into it. That's how they trick us in court. We be on one thing and they take us to a different topic. They lead us in all kind of different directions. This is crazy. When you sitting up there in court, you on something and you trying to stand on your square, and all of a sudden that judge leads you on something else. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you: what was what is the meaning, or the purpose of saying something 3 times in court to one of these magistrate judge or ministerial officers?
Everything works in threes. 3 is a magic number. You can go back to
but once you have said that thing. Once you have said it 3 times, then what?
Well, I'm gonna tell you like this, and I'm gonna tell you what. And this is not a fact or anything I'm about to say. This is my perception, and it's just an observation that I made. When I look in the Black's Law Dictionary, one thing I noticed, because I've spent so much time in it, that it always seems to be that the third sense of the word is always a commercial term. Most of the time, not all the time, but I'd say about 80% of the time, when you look at the definitions of the word, if they don't have a whole plethora of definitions or only a few senses of the word, a lot of times they put that third sense of the word as some sort of as a commercial term. Because when you look at you can look up a word in the Black's Law Dictionary and it has a different sense. So I think that when you go into a court and you use a word, they don't know what sense of the word you're using. So if you say it the one time, that's the first sense. If you say it the second time, that's the second sense. If you say it the third time, that's the third sense. That's what I was kind of, and this could be wrong. I'm not saying, but Right. I wanted to, when we talk about the 3 times, that's when you also get into esoteric type conversation because, you know, even when you did like the Wizard of Oz, you had to say the magic word 3 times, tap your heels 3 times. You know, everything was on this thing with 3. And even in Schoolhouse Rock, you said, you know, they got this, the Schoolhouse Rock cartoon that used to come on this weekend. They got one of them is 3 is a magic number. You know, so it's and hold on for a second. Let me make this announcement real quick. Let me tell everybody we're about to go into overtime. Yeah. If you want to continue listening to the call, you're going to have to call in now. The number is 424-222-5250. You got about 60 seconds to get you a line. If not, you can Skype in too if you're listening on the internet. But if you don't, it's going to disconnect you, and you're going to have to catch us in our archives. You can go to the archives at blogtalkradio.com/high frequency. You can catch the archives of the show, of this show, and all the other shows. You can hear the rest of the show. We're about to go into overtime, so call in now, 424-222-5250. There's only a few lines left, and that's everybody in the chat room. But that would be my take on it, brother. It's like, you know, obviously that's esoteric when you're talking about 3. That's esoteric. And that's why, and that was one of the primary reasons why I would say that you have to study esoteric information to understand. And when I say esoteric, it doesn't mean hidden because obviously all of this stuff is built on some type of ecclesiastical law, which when we talk about the Jesuits and all these different people, these people are all skilled in what would be termed high sciences, because everything is a science. This ain't no jumbo. If they want people to do something 3 times, it's some sort of science behind it. It's not. Everything is a science. Law is science. Law is scientific. 100%. All
right.
But hey, let me take a couple of calls.
They might want to get up and run up off chair. I say I know some of those judges might want to get up and run off of that chair before you get to that third time or something for some reason. I had a judge, and this is personal experience. I had a federal magistrate judge, not a district court judge, a magistrate judge, and I asked him to read. Okay, they were trying to give me charges, and I knew that the charges need to be read into the record. So they wanted me to plead. They brought me for and that's another thing. You're not even supposed to be pleading before a magistrate. You know, and this is another thing why I have to do this webinar tonight on how to evade a federal indictment. People need to get with me on that tonight so we can discuss that. But the funny thing is that they presented. They said, well, you know, how you plead, and I said, well, look, I'll be more than happy to plead to the charges if the judge can show me that charges have been formally entered into the record. And so as soon as I said that, the prosecutor went over to bring me my charges. Nobody said anything. Now, the record's not showing it, obviously, because they hadn't said anything. They're just handing you a piece of paper. And they handed me the piece of paper, and I looked at it in front and back. I said, I see no charges. I said, I request that the judge direct the prosecutor to read the charges into the record. He said, no. I mean, he lost composure. I mean, this tripped me out. He just lost his composure. And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, he said, no. And I said, well, am I to understand the honorable judge is violating my due process right of hearing the charges read against me into the record? And then he said, no. He said, I'll read it into the record. And so the bailiff took him the charges, put it in his hand. He held it in his hand. He looked at it. He just sat there at the bench and just stared at it. And all of a sudden he said, no, I'm not going to read it into the record. And then I asked him again. And then when I went to the third time, he started screaming at me, right when I was trying to do the third time. So, and then also, a district court judge asked me my name 3 times. Now, what it's supposed to be is that 3 times stands on the record your position on that particular matter. They got up to 3 times, you know, to ask them something. You got 3 times you can ask them their name. Now, you can read a lot about this. I gave everybody a document called Law, Redemption, in Court. You can actually go to Section 4, and it discusses this number 3, of doing things 3 times. It goes into that a lot. That's where a lot of people are getting this information. There's almost nothing that y'all can bring to me. I can't tell you the source or where it came from.
Because I done read everything and then did all this stuff myself. I said, okay, I know what document you got that from. Somebody's always trying to sneak something in on me. I said, yeah, you need to go read this document right there. Go read Judge Dale's document. Go read Law of Redemption in Court. Oh, go read, court process. Go read a court survival guide. Oh, yeah, that's right there. That's an abatement in common law. Oh, yeah, I remember reading that in One Man Out. Oh, that sounds like that came straight out of Cracking the Code, 3rd edition.
Right.
These guys are getting stuff from different sources and converting it into their own stuff and then presenting it like it's theirs. And if they don't understand the principles behind it, they just fucking it up. Excuse my language.
Right.
You don't understand what it is that you're doing. And that's why I spend so much time on principles, because you have to master principles before you get into methodology. All right? You have to learn how to dribble before you can play basketball. You can't come on the court and you've never dribbled a ball before, how much you want to play on the NBA. You can't make the NBA, you probably can't shoot with your left hand or dribble with your left and go right. You have to be able to go right and left and all this. They're looking for, they're looking for what your fundamentals are like. What is his fundamentals? And that's how it is with everything in mastery. In any type of thing you want to master, you have to master the fundamentals first. That's anything.
Now, can you say something about the trust? Like when you go into court, that's a trust established, and that's kind of the reason why you ask you want them to read it into the record, because now they're becoming, or they actually are the trustee in the first place. I don't know if the prosecutor or the judge, but once they read it into the record, they, I guess for sure become the trustee. But they're trying to get you.
Well, what it is there aren't any charges in existence. The only thing that matters is the record. So if you haven't read the charges in the record and they're trying to get you to plead, you're pleading to non-existent charges. The charges are already fictitious in the first place. They're fiction. They're bringing a claim, and they're a bankrupt entity. They can't bring a claim. They're bankrupt. And this is what I'm saying. There is no money. They can't bring a claim. That's why none of those mortgages are valid. None. None of the car notes are valid. None of them. None. N-O-N-E. Not one. Not one in the United States of America is valid. There's no money.
Can you repeat that? That just like, wow, that was, they're bringing charges, which there is no charges. It's all fictitious. Can you repeat that?
Well, you got to understand it's a debt collection. All right, and this is what you have to understand. The statutes represent, and when you read the United States Code, you'll see that, hey, you do this charge, it's $1 million or 5 years in jail, or both. It'll say that. All right, you have $1 million fine or something like that. All right, that's the statute merchant. All right, it's a bond of record. Okay, so you owe this money. It's a bond of record and everything, and they're not telling you that because they operate off of presumptions, assumptions, and color of law. So they are presuming that you don't want to know how it is, how much it is. The same thing the debt collectors do when they do the mortgages. They come at you and they say, "Oh, you owe us this money and everything like this," but they are presuming that you don't want to verify the debt. Well, the same thing is happening in the courtroom. They're using the same methodology. They're assuming that you don't want to verify the debt. There's no verification. You haven't requested any verification of what we're doing on this collection of this debt. And as a matter of fact, they're operating within the Constitution because you can't question the debt. That's what the 14th Amendment is all about. So that's where acceptance for value came in. It's called, or what they call an acceptance for honor. You won't find acceptance for value in a law book, but you will find the word acceptance for honor. That is a legal term that people should study. You should also study the word stranger and look at the third sense of the word. This word is stranger.
Right. And
I've had an attorney call me a stranger. I've had an attorney call me a stranger in a court proceeding before. And if you don't know what that word means, you'll think it means something else. The word called stranger. Right. That's dealing with debt collection, the payment of a debt.
Wow. And that's what I was saying. We grow up to believe that stranger means something else other than what you're talking about. That definition of, that legalese or that lawful definition, we are unaware of that even exists because we're not even taught that in these schools which they run and the churches which they run. So we're not taught any of that. So we know that word stranger just means something that's not familiar to us, and we're not taught that the legalese of it, the lawful word, definition of it. So when they speak to us in courts or, to the other ones that don't have that knowledge, and they're just thinking he's speaking everything that he was taught growing up. He's saying something totally different. And when they're using the Constitution, as far as the courts, are they using I wanted to ask, there's two constitutions for the United States of America and of the United States of America. So which one would they be using? I believe it would be of the United States of America.
If you're operating under of the United States of America, and you're operating under a corporation, and when you look up, this is why you have to look up the word Constitution. Look up the word Constitution in a law dictionary, so you get an understanding that constitutions are utilized to create corporations.
The Constitution is a trust itself, correct?
The Constitution for the United States is a trust, and the preamble is a trust indenture. All right, true enough. But still, and yes, you should know that. Now, let me answer a question I saw in the chat room real quick, because somebody said about a notary. They said they thought a notary holds more weight. And the only okay, that's not what I thought. I'll go back later. But that's basically. Let me take some more calls, brother. I gotta go. I gotta move on.
Yes, sir.
I got to ask some more questions. But, essentially you had some good questions, but it breaks down to public and private, brother. Either you're engaged in a taxable activity or you're not. But anyway, let me go back to the phone line. All right, thank you for calling, okay?
Thank you. Peace.
All right. Let me bring in next caller, 718-0885. Do you have a question or comment for our guest, J.T. Bay?
Yes, I do. Thanks for taking my call. Greetings to the esteemed guest. I had heard earlier you say that the IRS only looks back 3 years. Is that correct?
Well, 3 actual years. They can go back if there is some connecting issue. Say you got that second year, you got something that reflects back 3 or 4 years. They can go back even further after they find out an error or omission.
Okay, so because I was told I should keep my records for at least 7 years. Is that a good practice?
I would say so. I would say you should keep it for 10 years.
10 years, okay.
10 years. Because they can go back. They can go back after that and say that you omitted something or you did this or you did that.
Okay.
And it's a good thing to keep them in archives just in case somebody says something that's not true.
Okay. And the other question, getting to like American currency, I came into inheritance of some coins and stamps, and I'm actually going through some of them right now. Is there any significance in terms of value for coins that have the letter D, or do you know anything about that?
I'm not a coin expert, but I do know that different alphabets on coins means that, and you can go look in a dictionary under coins, and you can get some information that's a lot more valid than what I may be speaking, because there are what mint it came from, because the San Francisco Mint was really great during the earlier parts of our republic, because they were one of the first ones that was minting and dating the coins.
Okay.
And they put alphabets on them to date them. Like D means something, and A means something. So you can get that information and going into a coin shop, an actual coin shop, and asking the owner of the shop what is the significance of those alphabets, and he could tell you, because that's like what I studied, the Irish code. If they know it, they will give you the correct answer, and then you can verify that answer when you go to the dictionary or to the encyclopedia.
Right. Okay, thank you for that. And the other question I have, I heard about somehow that if you close a bank account, I don't know if this is true. I could be saying it wrong. Banks have access still to that account even if it's closed, and I myself could actually access that closed account. Do you know anything about that?
Well,
yes.
Go ahead, JT. Go
So
ahead.
I said there is activity on the account even after it's closed.
Okay.
There's activity on the account before if you opened it. It existed. Well, it was already in existence when you went into the bank to open it.
Right. No, but I'm just because I'm hearing people saying that they're able to access the closed account to take money from it and things like that. I was wondering if you guys have any. Well, they said
that if you look at the definition of closed account, it'll tell you that it's open for offset and adjustment for set off, but it still remains open to set off.
Right.
Yeah, they still have access to the account.
Yep.
Okay.
Set off and adjustments are accounting procedures that is used to deal with these type of accounts. Because as soon as you go on.
I was going to say, let me share a little story with you. One time I had a client, he was paying me $10,000, and I opened up a bank account just opened up a new business account. And he was my first client, and he gave me a check for $10,000, and the check bounced. And they closed the account. And when they closed the account, they put on there, they put in the account like a negative balance of $899,000. And I'm like, why did y'all put this, why is this account reflecting a negative balance of $899,000? And I ain't even put $899,000 in the account. But if you know the definition of closed account, they can set off that amount. They are somewhere they're going to get $900,000 to set off because their books have to balance every night.
Okay.
This is the type of fraud that I think that they're doing. So I'm like, okay, if you're reflecting $899, I got this audio. I'm going to let you hear this banker who's speaking on this. But every night at 12 o'clock, those books have to balance. They have to set that account off. So did they just put a balance on the balance sheet on my business account? Is that why they so aggressive? They so quick to close your account because we got an opportunity to make some money for dishonor now. I'm like, man, you didn't even give me a chance to even get with the man and see if I could get another check from him or anything like that. They just close the account down.
Yeah,
just like that. And I know some people out there know what I'm talking about. And they'll put that negative balance on there. And when you call them and ask them about it, we just do that just to let you know that the account is closed.
Right.
Okay,
are there any IRS or IRC codes that I could look up that helps me, that would help explain that? Or are there any places you could refer me to where I can study on this?
Well, if you got,
I don't know on that. I mean, JT might. I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know on that.
In the Complete Internal Revenue Code, you can go in the index and go in and look up any subject that you want to, and they will have a reference to a code section in there.
Okay.
They got.
And I recently I've seen a 2004 IRC manual. For like $10. Should I be looking for the most recent IRC manual? Could I refer to those older ones?
2004, 2005 are good years, very good years.
2004 and 2005. Okay.
Yeah, they start reducing the book down. My 2008 book doesn't have the power that 2005 book has. The 2005 book got more pages in it than the 2008 book does.
Right. Well, the manual I saw was in two parts, and it was only just the first from 1 to 2000. So I might have difficulty finding the second part. But try to go back as far as you can to get an IRC manual, correct?
Not as far as you can, but I would stop around 2005, 2004, 2005. 2005, I think, was the best year of IRS code book. As far as I'm concerned.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, gentlemen. Appreciate the answers.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. All right. All right. Let's go to Eric. G01, you're on High Frequency Radio. Did you have a question or comment for our guest?
Peace, mentors. How you doing?
Peace, brother, peace. Great. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Always good to hear both of y'all brothers' voices. Wanted to ask a question earlier, Brother Yusef and Brother TT, when y'all was talking about the legal aspect of the trustees going into court.
Yes.
One of the things I want to know is it the privatization of the document that keeps it out? Is what we put in the documentation inside the trust res that keeps it out of the court? You know,
it keeps it out. Anything that the trustee does is a private event, and he does not have to testify in any court, any place, at any time, because that's a private matter. Death is a private matter.
But let me answer too that yes, the indenture outlines the powers that are given to the trustee. So yes, that would have a lot to do whether or not any powers that have been granted to him could be construed as as public or private or whatever. So in the actual documentation is important in the formation of the trust.
Gotcha. So
I know what you're asking me.
Yeah, I want that. You know, if I run into that issue, especially in little scenarios we're doing now, we're trying to set up a lot of investment trusts and then making them bridge corporations doing a lot of business in the public. You know, we might run into issues somewhere. Somebody's suing, something happened, something this. So that trustee may run into an issue. So basically, the correspondence would be that documentation would be submitted to that court as to show why they do not have to testify.
Right. He does not have to testify because it's a private matter. It's a private matter. It's dealing with an estate. It's dealing with, somebody's life or death. So
unless
you do not have to reveal.
Well, we can't do criminal activity, right? If it's something criminal, they can still pierce that, right?
No, they cannot pierce that.
Man,
you do not have to testify as the trustee at all.
I see what you're saying. You can't say what it is if you don't testify. Who can say it is criminal? I see what you're saying on that.
Right. It's private, and you have to keep it private.
What was you going to say, brother?
I was going to say that's what the management is for. The trustees, that's what the trustees have to know how, when they're approached by the IRS, how to handle that situation. You got to know how to handle it. You got to know what you can give them, what you can't give them, because you there to protect the benefit, the interests of the beneficiary. And
exactly.
And let's say, now you can read some case law on trust shams where they construe the trust as an association or partnership or something like that, and then they come in and, they say, hey, but then that, like I said, that all is how you form the trust, and it falls back on the management of the trust as to whether or not they're able to do that.
Right, because I think, I just still think a lot of, to Brother Earlham, he was talking about it's a lot of slamming you when you look at private and public, and I think some of the confusion of the private and public is some of these private entities, when it looks like we're taking them into the public, is because we're noticing the public. We're not really taking them in the public.
That's what it is, a notice. You have to have a separate thing between a notice, like a UCC1 is a notice.
Exactly.
Somebody put a question on me the other day. They said, well, how do we get to the somebody said something about the collateral and everything like that, something like that. And I said, well, you contact the you contact the creditor. That's where they put their information on the UCC1. You call him up and talk to him and see what paperwork you need to get from him. But he's just giving you a notice that there's some sort of security interest in property.
Right, because I could have a 9A trust that could have a bridge, either foundation or another trust leaned up, and somebody in the public is having an issue with it, and that private 9A trust can still notice the public of this issue, and it wouldn't pierce my privacy. It would just be noticing.
They're just notices, and that's also when when you're in court, you have a private and public side. You give notices on the public side of what you're doing on the private side. You're giving notices that you are staying in honor, and then you handle your business privately. That's how you handle a private process with the court. You know, and that's why I keep telling people to read creditors in their bonds, because it explains that very clearly.
Exactly. Yeah. I think really, Brother Yusef, what I've seen from the last probably 2 years of operating the trust, 2.5 years, and 15 years of operating corporations, and I keep telling people this, they just really shouldn't be afraid of that public, and they should get a lot of experience by just going and doing simple corporations with a team, because if they do it with a team, they'll learn how to operate in unity. You know what I'm saying? They'll learn who has different powers, how it works. But then when you get to the private side, you won't make as many mistakes, so you'll be used to the kind of format of how things operate. That's just the way I see it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a little tougher sometimes with a trust, because you have to really know how to stay in that private. You know, totally. Really.
You do, and that's what, and that private is a skill. People don't understand. That's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. That's like getting muscles. You know, like everybody can't get abs. Everybody can't get abs because everybody's not willing to do the discipline and necessary exercise to get abs. Everybody can't operate in the private. Everybody can't operate in the private. They ain't disciplined enough to operate in the private.
That's very true, because we when we created a couple of investment groups over here, and what we decided to do was, you know, when we get this knowledge, a lot of times we want to pull everybody to the thought. I'm not saying everybody shouldn't have make a notice of their either to have nationality or notice of status correction. You should be free from that part. But I'm saying when you're talking about the business aspect, everybody's not ready for that. So it got a lot simpler for us, because there's some people on our team who just aren't ready to be private, but they serve as great officers. They can open up bank accounts for them, and they can get their education. 2-3 years from now, they back up off, and we can get lines of credit. It allows us to keep moving without trying to figure out how to do it with us who are the ones trying to stay private. You know, we can create with those who are kind of in between who haven't got there yet, if that makes sense.
I think so. You kind of, JT, did you catch that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I'm just basically saying a lot of people want to go totally private. You know what I'm saying? But we want to do business, right. And then when we operate, it's us. We might be the only ones in our whole jurisdiction, the area, that understand how to operate total private. So we might have access to 5, 10, 20 people in our area, but time you teach them that, you ain't going to get nowhere. It might be better to just utilize them in their public capacity with their socials to create the LLC till they educate and learn, and now you're teaching them, they're helping you operate public, you stay private, and you can still operate and bring them up, you know, to understanding, and we can kind of help each other that way. You know what I'm saying? That's how
right. I look at things like this. I understand what you're saying. I look at things like this. You know, being private means you want to be left alone. And being private and being left alone, the optimal way to do that is you have to be an investor. I mean, I think one of the best books put out to give an understanding of that is Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant. I don't know if people have read any of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series, so you can get an understanding between an investor, a business owner, an employee, and you know what I'm saying? There's like 4 different entities, and at the top of the food chain is an investor. And you want to be an investor, and that's what these trusts allow you to do. It allows you to be an investor and maintain your privacy.
Right, that's true.
Right, that's it. Right.
That's true.
That's what it does, you know, and it's like
you're feeding the entity. You're feeding the entity and giving it life. You're the blood. The investor is the blood of the entity. So he has total control of what's going on. Period.
Gotcha.
I don't think you can be private unless you are an investor. I don't think it's possible to live a totally private life unless you're an investor.
See, I'm agreeing with you on that one, because that's why I see everybody get the headache at. Because you can't, because if you can't operate, it's nothing. You can't maintain the privacy too much long. You can't operate.
And you have to be an investor, you know. So that's what we're doing. This, and we're doing the webinar on Saturday and everything. We're going to explain a lot of this stuff. But, you know, it's like, you know, it's just an unfolding of information. Things become clearer and clearer, and you begin. That's why I know as a people we're going to rise back up, because we can look across the fence and we can begin to understand that fog is starting to lift, and we're beginning to understand what they're doing. You know, I was talking to an LAPD officer yesterday in Compton, California, and, you know, and Compton is so rich with history. It's been given a black eye and undeservingly. Let me say this, first of all, about Compton. I met some very great people in Compton. But he was explaining about how we don't take care of how he travels all over, and what he sees the difference in the neighborhoods is how other neighborhoods take care of their neighborhoods, and they have accountability for things that go on in their neighborhoods, and we don't. And that's what we have to start doing. We have to start looking back in our neighborhoods. You know, I really feel like this. If our architects get on the job, people are going to be looking in our neighborhoods and saying, man, look at them houses they building over there. Look at them structures and everything. Our creativity, look over in Egypt and see what we were doing. If we ever get back to that status, you know, when we start taking pride back in our own neighborhoods and everything, and money starts flowing back in our own neighborhoods, we're going to be at the top of the food chain.
That's true.
Trust me on that. And that's what I'm trying to do right now, because I know we got it. We got it. They didn't put some type of spell on us. We can't, you know, like there's some type of spell or we've been hypnotized. Every time you think about getting together, you will bark like a dog, or you will attack your brother, or something like that. You know, how they put people under some type of hypnotic spell, and it seems like that's what we under, because we just say everybody I meet can't understand why we can't get together. They can't understand. It's like some invisible force that's preventing it that we can't see. It's like, damn, what is the problem? Everybody wants to do it, but for some reason, it just never happens.
Yeah,
it's got to be some type of. It's got to be some type of witchcraft, and I think the fog is lifting. And I think one of the vehicles for us to do this, to start this, is setting up some sort of community trust and start getting into this investment thing. We got to learn how to play this game.
And we really got to understand the administrative process. When I say administrative, I don't mean like how you put your paperwork in. I'm talking about when you put together these dynamic or corporate or any type of structure where you're dealing with other people, you have to really understand how to put together organizational structure. And then that is a universal science that's using universal laws within itself. And a lot of times the reason why our structures don't work is because we keep violating universal law. Like one of the laws we violate mostly is something for nothing. We don't do the law of exchange. And that keeps on creating an issue. And so we have to really get into seeing all these different laws, different things that occur. The laws of disconnect occur. There's just so many different laws that happen with the different things. But I do enjoy the show today, and we're going to start this year off right and everything. And I love both of y'all brothers, and keep on doing what you do.
All right, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thank you for calling in. Appreciate it. Beautiful comments. Beautiful. All right, let's go back to the phone line. We got about 30 more minutes left, not 25 more minutes left on the call, y'all. I'm gonna try to run through these as quickly as I can. Let me dip over to area code. Let's see where we going right now. Let's go back over to Florida. A lot of people calling in from the East Coast today. Florida, 786-7796. You're on High Frequency Radio. You have a question or comment for our guest?
Hello?
You're on there?
Hello?
Hello?
Oh,
You're on there?
Hi, Brother Yusef. I was just wondering what the brother was saying, if there's more information out there about the closed bank accounts, because there was, after my mother-in-law's house went into foreclosure, they closed her bank account as well as my husband's bank account. So I'm wondering if there's any way I can try to find something or try to dig into that a little deeper.
Well, there is a book. The only thing I can tell you, I haven't read all the way through it yet, but what I could give you is this book called, let me find this book. JT, do you have anything on that? I don't. I got a book.
What was that again? What was that you said?
She said on closing the bank account. Ask your question again, sister. Go ahead and ask it again.
My question was, after my mother-in-law passed away, and they immediately put her house into foreclosure, and we had a bank account attached to her bank account, and our bank account was not in the red. Hers was barely in the red because of one check that she had, but they closed both the accounts immediately without even notifying us of why. And one of the accounts was not in the red. They just shut them down.
Well, they go ahead.
They wanted the property of your mother, and they saw an opportunity to grab it because they figured no one was awake and was full of grief, and they just moved in for the kill. They are vampires basically, and you just have to fight that and show where that account was still valid upon her death, and that's part of her estate. And they cannot come in and just take your estate after you pass away. They have to go through a period of getting everything connected and put together, because there's probably a lot of loose wires out there after a person passed away. That's why you have an estate and you have a time for it to draw down after a person passed away. It's a lot of good law in a person passing and their possessions, because you just can't run in somebody's house after they pass away and start taking their items, because that's their still personal effects. And that's her personal effects is her bank account. And that's a lawsuit that you can win, because that's totally unlawful.
Okay. And my other question to you is hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
We're here.
Okay. My other question to you is, my mother-in-law died on a Friday, and within on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, we were getting calls from the realtor about selling her property right off the top. I mean, she wasn't even buried. You know, and the particular area that we're living in Florida is an area where their reunification, is that what it's called?
Gentrification.
Yeah. And they're doing that in this particular area, and we have had realtors come up and knock on our door and ask us, do we want to sell our house? And you know, we've been fighting these people. They're calling us on the phone now talking about we have a place to visit, the house for rent in your area. You know, do you want to rent the house? I mean, we don't even know where all these phone calls are coming from, and we're fighting them right now. We're fighting them in court right now. But we're constantly getting people coming by the house, and they're sitting in here. They're sitting there watching us. It's really kind of eerie. But we are determined to fight these people, and we're going to fight them. And
I'm gonna tell you. I wanted to tell you this about Miami. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but let me say this about Miami. When I was there in Miami back in 2009, I think they had. What you have to do is you got to go down there and see what the city planners are doing, because I was helping people with some criminal cases in Miami who had some homeless people who had got some dope charges, and what they were doing, they were cleaning up. They had something called Project or Operation something that they were doing, and when their first phase was when they decided to go in and start gentrifying something, they start moving people out. And they get rid of the homeless people. They get rid of everything. And that's what's happening. You got to see what their plans are, because they got some plans, and they're going to go all out to make sure those plans come into fruition, because I can't see them trying to change their plans for anybody. And I've been in that area that you're talking about, and they got some very, very high-priced stores over there. They're building up an infrastructure over there where it is very obvious that they're planning to do a gentrification project in the surrounding neighborhoods. And they're doing the same thing in every city. So you may want to go and see what go downtown and see what the plans are, and that will tell you everything. To go get the plats, go down there and get the plats from the city and see what they planning to do, and find out what's going on, and that will give you some leads on who to start and who to look at too. Go ahead, JT.
Right, and who to start suing, because that's harassment, and that's also violation of your privacy too, to come in on your mother like that, and to basically stop y'all in the grieving process, and that's totally unlawful. And I'm sure some laws on the books in Miami area that covers that, and you can go into the law library and find out about that in terms of death and what happens afterwards, and what they can and what they can't do. They just can't run up in your house the day after somebody died and say, okay, you want to sell the house. No, that's stopping you in your grieving process, and that's a process that you have to go through, because we all leaving, but who wants to go? You know?
Right, exactly.
So that's a privacy issue too, because they violated your privacy by coming at you like that, and they're intimidating you too, because they're coming so aggressively. So you could go to the law library and research this and get them where by their short ones, and they will back off of you. They will have one house that they won't be able to buy, and that's yours, because you've been got them for treble damages, which is fraud.
Okay. I have one more question for you, sir. This is it. Okay, so we filed the verification validation with Wells Fargo. They then passed it on to B of A, and for the attorney for B of A, and then they indeed turned it on to another attorney's office, which we don't know where they came from. They all claim to be representing B of A, but I know they're debt collectors. But she asked the judge, this last attorney, she asked the judge, she wants to file a motion to make sure that we can't file this counterclaim in court and without prejudice. So that's what we're faced up against in April.
Well, how can she justify what she's filing? How can she justify?
I didn't hear what you said.
Okay, say again, sister.
Yeah, you filing. What are you looking at in April?
We got an appointment to see the judge with. She's filing a motion of dismissal. She wants to dismiss our counterclaim without prejudice. Is it with prejudice, honey, or without?
I mean, you got to answer it. I mean, who wants to dismiss the counterclaim? The opposing counsel?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, they can do that. I mean, you can't stop somebody for filing a motion. That's a request. I mean, they're requesting to do something. So you counter it and say why they should not, it should not be granted. Because all the motions, they're supposed to. They're trying to win. It is an adversarial proceeding. They are trying to win. So they're trying to stop what you're doing, and you're trying to stop what they're doing. So, you file an answer to that. They say, no, you don't need to dismiss my motion, and here's why.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Based on credible evidence that you have that's superior to what they got. They got,
right.
They're just drawing straws and hoping that you roll over because they are lawyers. But they put their clothes on the same way you put yours on. So, go after.
That's right. All right. Well, thank you, sister. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
I
Let's go to the next caller real. Thank you. Let's go to the next caller, 336, which is North Carolina. Let me jump over to North Carolina real quick. North Carolina, 9930. You're on High Frequency Radio. Do you want to add a question or comment?
Yes. Peace, Brother Yusef. Peace, Brother JT.
Peace, brother.
Peace to God first. JT, I wanted, since we were both talking about, I heard Brother JT said that the common law the law of the land. And my thing is, how do you go about holding a common law venue?
Well, you first of all, you invoke common law, and then you use common law citations. You don't use no statutes or anything like that, but you can invoke the common law at the beginning of a proceeding.
Yes, that's what I'm doing, and I notice you have to put them on notice first, because what it is a common law venue. That's the whole point. In other words, we have to learn how to flip the court. So I was asking him, do we have any techniques of his or you, Yusef, to know how to flip the court? Because we're putting them on notice. We have to give them notice first that we're moving into a common law. We're moving this. In other words, that we're on the wrong side of the court.
Well, I gave the whole show I did on Friday is abatement in common law.
Oh yeah,
that's that right there is showing you how to invoke common law jurisdiction in a case. That whole document, that's what that's about, abating a case in common law. The whole document is dealing with everything that you just asked me right there. So, I mean, that is your example, if you wanted it. That's one example of many examples, but that is a good example that you can utilize to form some type of system to roll off of. So,
So because when we do that, we're separating ourselves from the legal fiction, and we're saying that we're the man. We're not that legal fiction that they're trying to, charges and everything that they're trying to bring against us.
That's why you do an affidavit of a denial of corporate existence, because you got to understand that the statutes are for corporations. That's what they're for. The IRS only taxes corporate entities. That's all the IRS taxes. Remember I told you earlier, I said everything is a tax? The IRS deals with 7 primary entities. They are a trust, an estate, a corporation, a company, an association, a partnership, and an individual. And the last one, individual, when you look it up, you're going to see that it refers you to an entity which is corporate in nature. It's an artificial person. All right, so they only deal with artificial persons, okay, and that's what the statutes are applicable to, persons that are artificial. All right, they even try to use this word natural person, but it's only dealing with artificial entities. And if you want to deal with something and assert your rights as a real living soul, you're gonna have to deal with things privately. It's private, you know what I'm saying, or under common law or something. That's really how you want to do it, because these courts they're administrative courts, they're territorial courts. That's what they're for. And that's why one of my rules is stay out of the courts, because really you're supposed to have your status and everything correct and not even go in these courts. The ultimate game is we ain't supposed to be in debt. We ain't supposed to be doing none of this stuff. By the fact that we got these car notes, these house notes, which are debtors, that is the biggest indication that we don't know what we're doing. We ain't supposed to have none of that stuff. America is supposed to be the greatest country in the world. We ain't supposed to be doing all this stuff over here that we're doing. We're not. We're not supposed to be engaged in any of this stuff. We ain't supposed to be going in these courts. These courts are not they are not conditioned for real living souls.
Right, exactly. So when we put the common law, abatement of common law, and then we just basically have to stand on that document. Well,
yeah. I mean, if you read the document, it tells you in there, why you have these like for instance, right to travel. You have a common law right to travel. You're not engaged in business. I'm not engaged. I got a right as a man to move up and down the road, man. Everything I'm doing is not business, and you let them know that. I got a right, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's not business. It's what it is. You got to let them know. They operate off of presumptions, assumptions, and color of law. Everything is a presumption until it's properly rebutted.
Right, exactly. So they cannot move against a man, a living, breathing man, or woman in that instance. So my thing is, okay, go, you about to say? Right. So another thing people were saying, like, I heard so many people trying to appoint the judge or the prosecutor beneficiary or the trustee. So my
that comes out of Judge Dale's document. You can read that in Judge Dale's document. Point the judge as the trustee. But go ahead.
Yeah, but why couldn't you? I mean, people are missing the whole point. You know, the most powerful person in there is the person that holds the ledger, and neither one of them hold the ledger. It's the court clerk. She holds the ledger. So therefore, why
that's who you get the bonds to. I mean,
right.
You'll find all that out when you go in. You'll find that out when you go and read admiralty law. You read something like the clerk. I tell people to read the clerk's practice because when you read history, you will see that they're still doing the same thing. It's just in a different form that we don't recognize it. It's not readily apparent. So in order to get a good grasp on what they're doing, it's very important to study the history. So that's why I tell direct people to read something like the clerk's practice. But most people are not going to read it because it requires so much looking up of words. That is a document that is a study for real. It's not like something you're just going to sit down and read. You got to, every other sentence, you got to stop and look up a word. You know, it's one of those type of things. So unless somebody is committed and dedicated to understanding, you know, so they can understand that they don't use the word bond, they use the word caution. You know, that's just a small example. And you understand that a power of attorney is how they actually constituted somebody to represent you in court. So use power of attorney, to do it. You say, okay, well, this is how they used to do it. This is what a power of attorney was used for. To have somebody represent me in court in an admiralty proceeding. But you try to do that today, they say you can't do it. But the history shows that this is how you did it.
Right, exactly.
So somebody says you're an attorney. In fact, I am. You know, people give those type of responses. Go ahead.
Right. So, all right. So now, so when we're in these venues, I mean, in the venue, we're not even supposed to be in there for one, like you said. But when we're doing the common law, so you're saying that is definitely a private matter when we're doing the common law because it's not public, it's private.
It's private, and it's many different ways to do it. You can come in under Rule 24, which is a third-party intervener, and this is where the acceptance for honor and the stranger doctrine comes in. All right, it's a third-party intervener because that's not you on the paper in the caption of the pleading. You're not the prosecution. You're not the defendant, and you're not the judge. You're a stranger to the proceeding, and as a stranger, you're here to make sure that the debts get paid.
Right. So now, okay. So in that case, so basically, you would be like kind of authorized representative or third party intervener or a third party of interest. So now with that payment of common law, when you come in under that, you must come in as a special appearance.
Always a special appearance. You have to be in your proper person if you're going to be in a special appearance. Yeah, because if you could do it in a general appearance, the automatic presumption is that you fall within their jurisdiction.
Right, exactly. So at any time, it doesn't matter. That's basically my understanding. That is challenging jurisdiction when we do that.
Well, if you want to challenge jurisdiction, it's not necessarily challenging jurisdiction. It's just saying that you don't really have in personam jurisdiction over me. These are in rem proceedings is what they really are. They're not in personam proceedings. They're in rem, which is about a thing, and that thing being the trust corpus, which is your property. And that's what they really are trying to tag. And you're being looked at as a trustee of that particular property. And the trustee has all the accountability, and that's why they put you in jail. Because you're a trustee ex officio who has some malfeasance and failure to perform some type of fiduciary act that what you were supposed to inform. And you can look at all of this when you read like a secured party creditor process. It says in the documentation, it talks about all this, that you have a duty to discharge all public charges your straw man may incur.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I'm gonna put that because I'm in there doing the common law right now, and I'm still going. I'm still going with the. They're trying to get me to do the psych eval, but that's the whole point because I invoke common law, and that's what they're trying to stop me from moving my claim because it's a notice of a claim. So you got to people want to go right in there and sue, but the claim is no more. The notice is no more than a notice to let them to put them on notice that if they keep proceeding, then the claim will follow. That's what it means.
But you know what? I'm gonna tell you, brother. You may want to look at read creditors and their bonds, because I'm telling you, it's a debt collection. All they want is that money for that debt, and they wonder why you are arguing with them about it, because there is no money. There's not any money. Give them a negotiable instrument. And this is what the purpose of I do negotiable instrument class, because you need to know how to construct a bill of exchange, a promissory note, or something like that. This is what the United Nations Conference on International Trade Law is for, and this is what Article 3 of the UCC is for. It's telling you how to make a negotiable instrument. That's what they're for. So, you know, that would probably alleviate a lot of stuff, you know, but right now you're in dishonor, you're arguing with them. Anytime you argue, you're in dishonor.
Right. So
argument in these courts is dangerous. It's dangerous.
Right. So in other words, so that is no one saying that. So the common law, when you're saying would be an argument, will be arguing, or just argument?
You know, it could be construed as that. When I did the abatement in common law, I did that because I wanted people to understand that. Look, I can offer you public remedies. You know, I done went through all this stuff. You know, I understand procedure and all this stuff. And I got experience in going in and dealing with a lot of these matters. So I just make sure you understand the whole gamut. I prefer private remedy because I know the importance and I know how weak trying to use procedure to get out of criminal case is going to be. That's why they got like a 99% conviction rate on the state and federal levels. You know, and you're definitely not about to find an attorney to help you. I mean, for instance, give you an example. Tonight, with this abatement of the federal indictment, it is very clear that you have a right under Rule 6B to voir dire the grand jury. And if they convene the grand jury without your knowledge, all you do is file a motion to dismiss because procedurally they're incorrect. You think they're going to do that?
Right, exactly.
These people don't follow their own rules.
Right, so
I'm telling you.
So what you're saying is that, in other words, when they bring a grand jury indictment in front of us, do it without us appearing before the grand jury, correct?
You don't even. Let me tell you, they're supposed to put have a stenographic record of the proceedings that went on with the grand jury, all this stuff. You don't never see any of that. You don't even know if it was really a grand jury.
Exactly.
You don't even know.
Exactly.
You don't even know. I done seen indictments come through like 25 at a time. And I'm like, how do you indict all these people at one time? How does grand jury go through all these cases in one day and indict 25 people?
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm dealing with right now. So you're saying invest. So, all right, so how did the abatement work out for you when you went in?
It didn't work. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They don't follow their own. They don't follow. What the judge said is it was very good, but they just ignored it. The only thing that they paid attention to is when I filed a demand for speedy trial, because they had to, because I put so much pressure on them about it. I put a lot of pressure on them about that demand for speedy trial. But they're supposed to. What I'm trying to show you is these are the rules. They're supposed to follow the rules. You got to understand, too, I was in jail. I wasn't free like you. So I was sitting in a cell. They just leave you in there. What they do is they just leave you in there, and they just ignore everything you do. They just leave you sitting there, until you finally come to the cell every day. You want to plead today? You want to plead? You want to plead today? You want to plead? It's like, so no. So I didn't have the benefit of being free. Now, when I was free, it did a lot of stuff work. When I was free, because you come in there and now you can assert yourself, you can demand certain things, and as long as you know how to conduct yourself in court, you can hold a foot to the fire. But it's very difficult when you are locked up in jail, and that's why I was telling you earlier, don't get locked up, because they want to lock you up, because when they lock you up, then they put you under duress. It's a duress type thing. They're going to put you under duress.
And I've been avoiding that so far. I mean, I know it's. I mean, that's why I'm like, because you already know what I'm dealing with. You know what you told me before. You're like, brother, I know what you're going through. I know what you're dealing with, and you kept telling me that don't get locked up. So that's what I'm dealing with. So you saying you put a dismissal? You said you put it to they did the grand jury.
Move for dismiss. I moved for dismissal. I filed a motion to dismiss. All that stuff, and they had to find a way because they saw, because what this was going to happen, when they expect most people just to give up and quit.
Right.
When they see you not going, as long as you keep making a record and you're not going to give up and plead, they have to account for the record. one thing I understood is that when I found motions and everything, they can't take me on jury trial without having some type of hearing on the motions that I filed. You know what I'm saying? So I understood that. I'm like, I done found these motions. Y'all ain't answering none of these motions. You know, you ain't granting me no hearing or anything like this, you know, to get any of my motions answered or anything like this. And then you're going to keep threatening to take me to trial.
Right.
We didn't even address the motion for discovery that the attorney because you know the first thing that a public defender gonna do for you, he's gonna file some type of motion to suppress and then some type of motion for discovery. They don't even answer that. You know, that's just some old boilerplate shit they file.
Right. What about the evidence though? You said something about the evidence as well.
Well, they didn't have any witnesses. That's what I said. You know. They didn't have anybody testify. You're going to take me to trial. That's why I filed a demand for speedy trial. They have no witnesses. Okay, well, you got to bring some witnesses in. So let's do this trial. Let's go to trial. I'm trying to see where you going to get some witnesses at. That's what I wanted to see. They didn't have none. It was a chess move. I said, okay. Because, see, I filed that because they try to hold